Welcome back to Scout the Shadows. It's me and Drew once again. But today we're not going over prospects. We're going to have a little fun. We're going to use this cool little off-season simulator. I guess is what it is. It's an off-season simulator that
Yeah,
kind of popped up this year. I think it's actually really good. I like it a lot better than ones I've used in the past. And I think they've done a really good job. It looks clean, and I'm excited to run through it with you. But we are making the Titans Super Bowl contenders today. Isn't that right, Drew?
we're fixing it all in one offseason, all right here,
They're gonna win it.
all the
They're gonna
problems.
win it because of this right here. They should be here, hopefully in the stream.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, officially kicking off the Titans mock offseason. This has been kind of a popular thing recently, and I wrote one of these actually. It was like an 8,000 word piece. If anybody cares to go read about that at paulkowarski.com, that was like a month ago now, I guess. It was right in the middle of the coaching cycle, and humble brag, but not at all. Actually, I may have correctly guessed the Salah Brian Dayball tandem in there.
Hey, he's got
And yeah,
receipts. He's got receipts.
I do.
It's
You can go read
there.
them. You know.
You're the pro.
Yeah, and kicking off. Really, I just want to go through here and get a chance to do it on video and get to explain kind of my thought process on a lot of that. Because even, believe it or not, even in a 7,000 word piece, I didn't get to say everything I wanted to say. Um, so just excited to dive into this thing. You know, get some of Parker's opinions on all the Titans offseason needs and some cuts and all that good stuff. And obviously, we'll kick it all off with a mock draft, and then we can get into some prospect talk there. But yeah, I mean, starting off in free agency with the cuts, I'll kick it off with L'Jarius Sneed because that's kind of the most foregone conclusion of this whole exercise. Like L'Jarius Sneed is going to be cut in. It's going to be sometime soon. If it's not within the next like week, it'll be the next 2 or 3 weeks. He saves you like $12 million. Cut him. Not the Titans need. Obviously, you see the cap number right here. Not that they actually need to free up any space. They already kick off free agency with 90 something or 105 million, I think it is. So not necessarily a need to cut loose assets and free money, but L'Jarius Sneed has had a disastrous to say the least, tenure, in Tennessee. In the very little time he's been healthy, he's just been flat out bad. So take the money, just cut your losses at that point with Sneed. The other kind of big ticket cut you could make is Calvin Ridley, which would save you roughly 14 million around there in cap space. And this has been kind of another topic of debate where it's a lot of people want to keep Ridley, and I understand that, and I may end up doing it here actually just purely for the fact that they don't need the extra money from that. But I almost want to cut him off of principle because it's been obviously coming off a broken fibula, being 31 years old. There's enough concerns in that as it is. But even before the injury, Ridley's play had just fallen off a cliff in the little time that he was healthy last year. So, I mean, I'm not considering him more than anything above a wide receiver 3 at this point. But with the Titans receiver room, maybe you're not in a hurry to cut a receiver 3. So I'll probably leave him in here just purely for the fact that they're not, jumping at the chance to free up that kind of space. So I'll leave Ridley for now, even though I'm really you're not expecting anything for him at this point. I think if you're being realistic, I think you're going in with the expectation he's your wide receiver 3. Moving on to running back, Tony Pollard is the other kind of hot topic on whether or not you keep him or cut him. And for the first 3 quarters of the season, I would have been fully in the camp of cut Tony Pollard because I just think that the juice was very clearly gone. And for some miraculous reason, the last 4 weeks, just starting in December, he looked like a completely different player. I mean, Pollard looked like the vintage Tony Pollard had seen. The vision was back. He was running wide zone at a extremely efficient level, which is huge coming in, obviously, with the Brian Dayball offense that's very zone heavy in the run concepts. And just keeping the veteran presence. I want to keep the stability for Cam in that room, but I think with some of the value on the running back free agent market and the amount of financial ammunition that they have to spend in free agency this year, I think you can upgrade there. So I probably will cut Pollard. I'll take the $7 million. Just again, kind of an abundance of riches here, but as I said, I think you could upgrade. Past that, there's not really any big ticket cuts that I think you need to make. Cody Barton is another guy a lot of people have mentioned because of he wasn't amazing, not really worth what you paid him, and he doesn't, quote unquote, fit Salah's kind kind of history with linebackers and fit his scheme that well. But you have a really young linebacker room. Obviously, Cedric Gray has been awesome. Should have been second team All Pro in my opinion this past season. James Williams, I've been high on since his rookie year at linebacker. I think he's been outstanding. So in an ideal world, those are your guys going in. But I don't think you're paying $2 million in dead cap to cut Barton. I don't think you're in that much of a hurry to get rid of him. So I probably just leave him on the roster, let him finish out that contract. I just don't see any reason to rush into that. And the only other one would be Xavier Woods, just because again, old, hurt, didn't really give you anything much more than baseline safety play. So I would just cut him and look for more options in free agency. But that's really all the cuts that I'm looking to do here. I'm not going to like restructure or extend anybody because I think you're getting a little bit too in the weeds, even for a full mock offseason. Because are they going to extend Peter Skoronski? Probably. Would I extend Jeff here? Maybe. Jeff Simmons? Possibly. But I'm not going to get that far into the weeds on this thing. So I think going into trades now with caps done. And I am somebody that tends to be very conservative and kind of gun shy on doing trades here. So obviously the first thing that you point to is Levis. That's kind of the given. Like he's going to get traded. So that's one that I feel comfortable doing. Will Levis was heavily rumored to get traded during camp and preseason. Last season, obviously had the shoulder ending surgery. That kind of handicapped any sort of trade talks, but he's back healthy this year. Some team is going to want a reclamation project at quarterback, and I think Levis is probably your best candidate for that. At this point, I think he's shown more flashes than a lot of guys getting starting opportunities in this cycle that are going to get starting opportunities coming up in this next season. So I think Levis is going to fetch not probably as much as some Titans fans are hoping, but there's going to be a market for him. I think when I look at teams, like the Rams are obviously an option. There's somebody that's been in the proposed quarterback market for a long time, although I'm not sure I buy that totally. I think the Vikings are kind of the obvious fit for Will Levis. You've got Kevin O'Connell, who's kind of the proverbial, quarterback rehab in the NFL. 9 did not really have his ideal season in his first time as a starter. And they have to have some form of contingency plan. So I think that you can have a low risk, potentially high reward trade for Levis. We'll send. I think 195 is fair. Parker, would you say that's fair? I'm going to kind of defer to you to get the final say on these trades, so I can take any. I try to think that I have no personal biases when it comes to this, but for the sake of the exercise, I'll let you have final say on whether trades are fair or not.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's interesting too. I mean, just the quarterback market, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what the Vikings do because I mean, they're kind of revered as the quarterback, rehab like school. So all these free agents that are coming up, I mean, you got everyone from Will Levis, you got Malik Willis that might be on the block. You got a bunch of guys that are kind of that next class that are starting to come out now and become free agents. And you have to assume that a majority of them are going to at least want or entertain Minnesota. But I'm kind of interested to see like what they're looking for. And that's my only worry with like a Levis going there is I just don't know. Like if it's me, like I would love that addition because Will Levis has fun traits and you've seen fun stuff out of him. So it'd be kind of fun to see how much you can max that and really what that potential is. And maybe it doesn't work out, but you're going to get him for cheap in a trade. And that contract's not going to be crazy when it comes due. So you can probably keep him for a little longer and really play with that. But I do think, sending any day 3 pick for Will Levis, I think is good value for the Titans. I think is good value if you think Will Levis is a backup quarterback for you. Sending a late round pick is, I think fair value. I think that's where teams like to do that. My only concern would just be, what other options are there? Are there free agents hitting the market that they're going to be more interested in than bringing in a Will Levis and having to pay for that? And that's my only concern with that whole situation. But I think as far as where you're at right now, I think it's great.
Yeah. And I think with the kind of the historically weak quarterback market that you're going to see with this being as thin of a quarterback class as it is and the lack of quality free agent options, like when it comes up, the running gag so far has been that, Malik Willis is going to play for 7 different NFL teams because everybody who is going into free agency with a quarterback need is getting Malik Willis, which is obviously not reality. So I think when it comes down to paying the market value that Malik Willis is going to get with that bidding war, if you're going to bet on a traitsy guy, I think Will Levis has shown you enough between his rookie and second year season, even with as low as the lows were and as bad as the bad was when he was playing. I think that sending a late day 3 pick for Levis and taking a bet on that, especially with somebody who is as is proficient and has the history of quarterback development that Kevin O'Connell does, I think this is a reasonable shot to take. And with the current landscape of quarterbacks in the NFL, I think that this is a reasonable shot. And like I said, I think everybody agrees that it's a foregone conclusion that Levis will be traded prior to the season starting this year. So I feel comfortable doing this one.
Yeah,
I'm
no, I
going to
think it's
send
good
that.
value. I don't think there's
And
anything wrong with that trade, like as a whole. I'm interested to see what the market looks like for the Vikings because I think they just made themselves a great destination. But I mean, Will Levis in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell feels like an ideal situation for everybody, in my opinion.
absolutely. And then sending to the second option here that has been talked about a lot post Robert Saleh hire, and I have given it a lot of thought because I think a lot of times these trade rumors are kind of far fetched, and it's fans that tend to overvalue their own players a lot. But Tavondre Sweat has been a guy that has had a really interesting tenure so far in Tennessee because obviously, like I was not high if you if you were following me back then, which not many of you were. Back then when
Well,
that
me
happened, I was
neither.
not fond
Me
of that
neither.
pick. And the rookie season looked incredible because I was really just the way I feel a lot about a lot of the like day two, even day one defensive tackles in this class, where I just think they're really one dimensional run stopping nose tackles. They don't have much pass rush use. Um, that's the same way I felt about Sweat, and that's obviously that's an important role. You need those guys, but I don't think you take those guys in the top 50. And they took him at 38, obviously. And I I didn't like the pick. He showed I thought way more pass rush use in his rookie season than he ever did at Texas. And then this year, you'd heard the stuff about him dropping weight in the offseason, and we all got really excited to see how he's going to be even better and continue the linear development track. And I thought that it kind of immediately reverted back to what I saw at Texas, where there was really no pass rush impact from him on the interior this year, or very little. And he was still as valuable as he always is in the run defense, being a high end run defender and just always going to plug, a gap and a half in the middle in a nose tackle role. But I just thought there was some major pass rush regression this year, and obviously there's been consistent whispers that the Titans are not happy with his personality in the building. That's been an issue with him, the DUI before the draft and everything leading up to that so far. That's been a consistent theme with Sweat, and I think that has continued through his NFL career. And the Titans are not exactly the most fond of that. Again, just hearing whispers. I think he's a real candidate to be traded. Along with you compound that with all the new talk about him not fitting in Saleh's system, being a 330, 340 pound nose tackle, that's just not a guy you've seen Robert Saleh utilize a lot in his kind of, 4-2-5 nickel heavy scheme. He really prefers the more kind of 3-tech types on the interior that can move a little bit. And I think when you get all those factors together, I think it is realistic that you could see Tavondre Sweat be dealt prior to the draft. And there's a lot of teams that need that role, that's why Caden McDonald from Ohio State has been such a hot commodity. So I've been talked about that way so far in this draft season because teams are desperate for that role. And there is more teams that need that than there are Caden McDonald's to me. And I think if you're looking at spending, potentially what's a top 20, top 25 pick on Caden McDonald versus trading a late day 2 pick or even an early day 3 pick for Tavondre Sweat, I think there's not really a contest there. We were kind of brainstorming pre-show about this, and somebody that Parker brought up was the Chicago Bears. That's a team that you've seen really just get penciled in as a defensive tackle pick in the late 20s. And that's a team that needs help in other places too. You need edge help, and I think that your shots of taking an edge at 25 are probably better than they are later on day 2, like the Bears are going to do. So I think that is kind of the destination that I point to with him or one of them. You could also look at the Chargers, maybe the Jets, but the Jets don't really have the day 2 capital that you'd want to pull off a trade like this. So for the sake of the exercise, I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears. And Parker, you tell me what you think about the value here. Would you send, say, pick 89 for Sweat and a 5th, maybe 142, we'll say?
Well, see, it's interesting because now that I've gotten down this rabbit hole of mine, since 5 minutes ago when we talked about this. I'm interested. What are your thoughts on like the cap situation? Can they afford to pick up like a Sweat's good, like, but are they gonna be able to clear anything? Like, is that a worthwhile move for them to make if they're giving away capital? I'm like
That
looking trying to look through their
is
D line room right now. I'm trying to like figure out, yeah, because I know I'm totally throwing this on you. This is my
no,
fault.
yeah.
But
See, no, opposing teams cap space in trade talks is something that I always fail to consider, and it's something that here, honestly, I'm kind of considering just forcing anyway because obviously everybody's cap situation is going to change drastically from what it is now to when this trade would actually be taking place. I think so. Just for the sake of the exercise, if we're just talking about fits, let's say that the Bears front office works some cap magic and they can clear
well, I mean,
enough space to make this
sorry, I
happen. Would
totally
you
got
do it?
like off track, but I think
No,
I think
you're
this
fine.
is a good value for the play. But I think even like I'm looking at like Grady Jarrett, 33, good player, but is he worth $14 million? I don't know if he is. And they can save 21 by cutting him. Like this might be, yeah, this might be a better fit than I thought. So I'm in. If you can get rid of Grady Jarrett and pick up a draft, I mean, swap a draft pick, I think it's a good value. I like it. I like it. I just kind of like
So
got into
again,
the weeds there for a little bit. I got down a little rabbit hole and over the cap, and I was like,
no, that's
this
what
is
we're here for.
actually, yeah, man.
We're getting into the nitty gritty on this mock off season.
And I think Sweat. It's funny, like the frustration with him because and you and I have talked about this with a couple of prospects, which I'm not a victory lap guy, so it is what it is. But it's like you and I talked about Sweat during the cycle. I thought like near the end of the cycle, right?
I think so, yeah, because we were pretty similar on him pre-draft, if I
Yeah,
remember.
because I just remember when I met you. But I remember I talked so often about how I couldn't get there with Sweat because of how tall he played and like the pad height and the like just the numerous issues that like I saw in his film where it was effort, pad height, like he didn't really show great strength as like a passer. Like wasn't a pocket pusher on film. And so it's funny to me now that like the complaints about him are, oh, he doesn't really have the pass rush juice. He doesn't have the X. Y. I'm like, well, he was never that guy. Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
But anyway, long story short, the pad height didn't get fixed. The effort didn't get fixed. The energy didn't get fixed. I mean, I just feel pretty good about that evaluation from start to finish. And I feel like he's a great fit for what Chicago needs to do. And I'd be interested to see like if he would be able to figure it out just based on, like the stuff that you and I have talked about and so forth. But I like on paper, great fit. I'm just interested to like in the career arc of a one Tavondre Sweat.
Yeah,
But
and I think
short
all of
story
like the pad
short,
level,
make the trade. I think it's good.
yeah, like the pad level, the effort stuff, all of that is still very apparent on the film to me. And I think, like I said, if you're good with the value here, I think it makes sense for both parties. New regime in Tennessee, cut your losses with a pick from a previous GM who and it just really has not lived up to top 50 expectations to me. I think it makes sense for both sides. So
That's such an
and the trade
underrated
is there you go.
aspect of like off season and like trade talks and like, yeah, coming from a Bengals fan, not really a lot of opportunity. But these other fans, when you get like a new front office, you have to remember like the guys that have been like clinging on to the roster, and you don't know why, or it's like, oh, I mean, they're fine. Those are usually the first guys to go with a new regime. And like you said, I mean, Tavondre Sweat's he's not this GM's guy, right? Like he came in after Sweat, correct?
Yeah, I mean he was
I'm trying to remember. All the years are
I think
blending
so.
together.
I
I think it's the
seriously
year
man.
after. But regardless, he has no like true investment into this player. It's not really like the emotional side of like the business side of football. I just feel like people don't like consider. Like there are GMs that like have a soft spot for a player, or there's a guy that like,
Right. Yeah.
oh, I drafted this guy early. I'm kind of like invested in this guy. I can't get rid of him. Whereas when it's not your draft pick or it's not your extension that you made, it's not your contract, then you really have no ties to that guy. And you're okay cutting a guy that maybe even the fans might like, or maybe the coach might like, but doesn't fit your MO or what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go. So, I mean, that's a very easy cut, easy trade that a lot of people, I think, might have a harder time putting through. Not saying that this was an example of that, but I think it is just like this is a good example of like hey, I'm not really invested in that guy. I didn't pick that guy. I don't really have any connection to him. Like, I'm fine if I can get value for this in a trade. This is like the perfect example of a guy in Indy that you're like going around, you're texting around, you're walking to the different suites, and you're like, hey, like, are you interested in like a Devondre Sweat? And if they say yes, then that's when you pitch an offer out like this. And again, I think it's good enough value where Chicago has no real reason to say no. So that's my rant. But yeah, I think I think Sweat to the Bears solves a lot of their problems, and I think will be better long term purely because I think people are going to set the bar way too high for McDonald. He's not the guy that people think he's going to be coming into the league as a rookie.
Totally agree.
And so even if you still end up drafting him for whatever reason, if you make this move, then at least you still have like insurance there because you know what Sweat is. I think at some level,
yeah, you've seen enough. Like you know
you've seen him in. You've seen him in the league. You've seen him make fun plays. You've seen him have bad games. Like, I mean, you know what you're getting with him, and it allows you to bring in more of a variable. Or maybe it's like a day two Dominique Orange to like pair with that as like your insurance plan for Sweat. So I think it's a good move. The Titans bring on money. The Bears they plug a hole so they can invest elsewhere. And I think everybody wins. And before we move on, I have to get a philosophy that I've developed this over the last like 18 months off my chest because you're in a perfect situation to talk about it. But I've started growing into the camp of if you are 30 plus and you can save me 20 plus million, I'm finding a way to get you off my team. And I think this is like, I agree with you 100%. I don't think Calvin Ridley is worth cutting, but I would be surprised if they don't push hard to try and trade that dude. What are your thoughts on trading? I mean, obviously, I don't think we're in a spot where we can do it in this sim, but I would love to like pick your brain on how you feel about like Ridley's market because I feel like you're going to have a much harsher view on him than like a neutral fan would. So I'm interested to like.
I definitely think I would because I think a lot of people still have the view on Ridley. Maybe they did like the first year he came into Tennessee. We're like, hey, this guy's probably still closer to a high end wide receiver 2 than he is a low end 1, but he's in that range. You know, he's worth that. But I think that now you've seen a year where you really saw the age hit Ridley. And like, is he still a solid separator? Yes, he's very clearly still got the nuances of separation. He's been in the league long enough. He's been an elite separator for that long. He still knows how to find success in that way, but he doesn't have the top gear that he used to. And he was never dominant at the catch point, but all that is completely evaporated. He's virtually worthless at the catch point at this point in his career. So, like I said, I went on a whole tirade about how I think he's purely a wide receiver 3 at this point, probably at best. So I agree that I would be probably lower on him than a neutral fan here. And I think that, I mean, the only reason I'm not offloading him is just because of the pure lack of bodies in the receiver room now and the fact that I already have 133 million. But if you can trade him, absolutely. Get him for anything. Kind of the same thing with Levis. Like if somebody wants to send you a 7th for Ridley, I'd do it. Well, but that's what the reality is. I especially it's the injury, really. Like if it was just him being aging and bad, you could find somebody who's willing to send you a late day 3 pick for an aging bad receiver. Hell, Tennessee's been on the receiving end of that for decades. That's kind of their MO at this point. But I think coming off a broken fibula at that age and how bad the play was before the injury, I think at that point, like you're looking at the point where you're gonna have to pay somebody to take him off your hands.
Yeah.
So I think it's more likely you just see him write out that deal.
Well, that's where I'm just so curious because I feel like there are enough teams right now that have, their young receiver, like they have a rookie receiver on a rookie deal where that guy's probably going to get paid at the end of his contract. But if you can bring a guy like Ridley in to just be a vet presence and you can get either Tennessee to overpay you to take him or, I mean, I'm okay if you can spread that remaining money over a couple of seasons, maybe even it's 3 years, and he's just he's like a number 2 or he's a rotational number 3 that you're confident that can step up if a young guy gets hurt. Like I just feel like that's like the perfect role for him right now. And there's enough teams in the league with a young wide receiver 1 that they're not really allocating money to that room right now that you can kind of absorb that cap hit. And like I feel like you'll get better value out of him, not leaning on him as your wide receiver 1 necessarily, even though you're paying him more than you probably feel comfortable doing. But if you have a nice, young, cheap wide receiver room, why not add a Calvin Ridley? Just, again, the vet presence. I don't know anything about him as like a teammate or a player. Like I could be way off there. But if you're willing to bring in that vet to just, coach up the young guys and be a steady presence in that room, help them get through the ups and downs of the early career woes, and again, he can be reliable as a rotational guy. Like you're more familiar with him than I am, but I don't see him as like I don't feel confident with this guy on the field. I feel like if you have a team that maybe has a good wide receiver and a question at number 2, or maybe you have a young guy at number 2 that you're hoping pans out, I think Ridley's a great ad if you can afford it and you're willing to spread it out a little bit to even make it easier to swallow. Because I do think that the Titans would be willing to give away a little value to get rid of him, especially if you're taking that money with you.
Yeah,
so I don't know. I think his market's just really interesting, especially with the state of the NFL right now and wide receivers and how they're distributed. So I'm really interested to see his market. I hope that like we get like at least rumors of something, because I feel like he is a good enough wide receiver to be valuable for someone else. Whereas I feel like in Tennessee, it's just like he's in a role that he's just not able to do.
Yeah, and I think I wouldn't say it's impossible. I might be underrating his value at this point because the tape from this past year left such a bad taste in my mouth. His name might still hold enough value to have a trade market at this point in the NFL.
I mean, just maximize your $300 million, get rid of that $26 million, and move on. And I think the Titans, I mean, you're working with half the cap at that point, so go crazy.
Yeah, I mean they're in great shape, and that's a great lead into free agency here. And just a side note, this is pick 78 for Calvin Ridley. If you accept any of these trades on these mock sims that you're doing, you're a little bit disingenuous. Come on now, like what team is spending pick 78 for a 31-year-old receiver coming off a broken fibula? What are we doing?
That is not a knock on any of the like on the sim, because I feel like we talked about that too. Like a lot of these sims, like the trades are just like, and that's why I get so frustrated. I'm not going to go on a tangent, but when you post mocks on your social media platform, if your mock draft has trades for just hundreds of picks, why? Like, what are we?
Wrap it up.
What are we doing? What are we doing? Anyway, restricted free agents.
Yeah, onto the fun part, or the first part of the fun part, at least. On to free agency, kicking that off with obviously your tenders: Mike Brown, Kamon Hall, Jarek Reed. None of these guys are going to be brought back. Darrell Baker, however, is one that I've kind of been like weirdly screaming his name from the rooftops since like halfway through this past season. He was brought in as a waiver claim at the beginning of last season. He had to come in when there were some injuries, and I thought he played okay, but he was kind of just more of a rotational depth piece for most of last season. And then this year, you saw Jarvis Brownlee get traded. You saw L'Jarius Sneed we're all shocked, hurt again. You saw Roger McCreary get traded. And all of a sudden, it's week 7, and your only corners are Jalen Armour-Davis, Darrell Baker, and 6th-round rookie Marcus Harris. So Darrell Baker's your corner 1, halfway through the season when he was your corner 4 last year. And I'm not sure I've ever seen a depth player step up more to an assignment than Darrell Baker did this year.
Ball, for real.
This guy was – I've written about that too if you want to go dig it up on paulkowarski.com just for the film breakdown on him. I mean, this guy, I'd be comfortable. Would I love it? No, but I feel okay with him as your second boundary corner. I think he's that caliber of player. And would you like him more as your third? Absolutely. But I'm not like up in arms if he's your number 2. Because I think this guy, if you want a physical, sticky man coverage corner, which I think this new regime is going to, that's kind of their guy. That's Mike Borgonzi has shown that. I think it's going to fit in solid system. Darrell Baker is that guy. And I like the right of first refusal, also waiver being up to $3.5 million is crazy, but I'm happy to pay that for Darrell Baker.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to bring him back on that tender. I think that is a no-brainer. And also the fact that prior to that tender, the only player in your corner room right now is 6th-round rookie Marcus Harris, who's coming off of a major lower body injury. So get at least a second body in the room in Darrell Baker, who I have faith in being a starting caliber boundary guy. Not going to bring back any of the other names. We're going to confirm tenders there. Okay, starting with pending free agents, just in the first part of free agency, I think that's the best way to do it. I'll just go down the list, and I'm going to try not to get in tangents on every single one of these guys, because Lord knows I could talk for half an hour on every single one of these guys, and nobody's here for that. So I'll try to keep it quick. Chigga I'll spend the most time on because I think he's the most noteworthy. He is going to get paid like a above-average tight end in free agency. And it really boils down to more of a philosophical debate than it does any sort of claim on Chig's play at this point. But I think the tight end position has been so warped in so many people's minds nowadays in the modern game. An F tight end or a move tight end does not exist. That's a power slot receiver, is what you're talking about. When you say a move tight end or an F tight end, you're talking about a power slot receiver. You're talking about somebody who is big bodied, can play as a stand up slot receiver, and come in and block situationally or in certain motion situations or maybe as a SIF blocker when you need them to. That's Cooper Kupp. That's Puka Nacua. That's what Jack Bech did for TCU, just to pull a random example. He didn't really get a chance with the Raiders. That's, I mean, you're describing big power slot receivers in that role. And when you look at it through that lens, Chig is a bad power slot. He's not a good separator. He's not what you'd like at the catch point. Is he a good athlete? Yes. Is he good after the catch? Yes. That's really all that gives you. I mean, he ranks dead last in blocking grade. Now, it's PFF, take it with a grain of salt, but dead last of all qualifying tight ends. The blocking is not there. I think you have a better power slot, or if you want to use the popular term, F or move tight end, in Alec Manor on your roster. I'd feel more comfortable with him in that role than I would Chig. So
you bring up a good point with the Raiders, though, because I think they're learning that, and no one's like noticing it, but like having Jack Bech and Brock Bowers on the same team is redundant because those are the same.
They play the same role.
They're just built differently. And so you can't get Jack on the field if Brock Bowers is out there because they play the same position, because Jack's not going to move outside and Brock Bowers isn't going to get a heavy dose of snaps in line. Like, because if you have Brock Bowers out there and you have a slot receiver, you want Brock Bowers to be the slot receiver. And so now you run into this redundancy where it's like you have two players that I think are really good. I think Jack Bech is a great player. Just a solid, like, fundamental slot receiver. I think like he'd be really, I mean, as a Bengals fan, I would have loved to have that guy in the room, especially this year. But yeah, like I couldn't agree more. The tight end position is just a disaster. And I feel like when looking at tight ends, you have to look at their blocking first. All these people look at tight ends like receivers first. And that's why we end up with these tight ends that just end up either people hate them or they end up like Brock Bowers, which is how often Brock Bowers, Travis Kelce, even Tucker Kraft. I mean, Tucker Kraft had a good year and I thought he was doing great until he got hurt, but like he's a blocker first. He's an inline guy. He's willing to be physical. He's strong. He can handle everything in the box. And then you're able to use him in line to get him open. But then you put him out in the slot. He's not a liability, but you're really just putting him out there and still relatively heavy personnel sets to keep personnel the same. But I agree 100%. Like if you're going to split a tight end out, just put a receiver out there. If you're going to be in 12, leave them in the box. Don't be in 12 personnel with one like in the box, one in the slot. What's the point of that? So I couldn't agree more. If you're looking for move tight ends, you're just putting yourself behind, in my opinion.
And I would bet my mortgage if you asked a defensive coordinator who would they rather play between a Brock Bowers, Travis Kelce, or a Tucker Kraft, they're going to pick the Bowers Kelce role every single time.
100%.
Because
100%.
the amount of flexibility and ambiguity that a tight end like Tucker Kraft, that is a sixth offensive lineman who is not a liability as a receiver, can open up in your offense versus somebody, when that guy's on the field, you know he can't block in line. You know exactly what's happening when those guys are on the field.
Yep, you know what they're doing.
The nightmare of playing a guy like Tucker Kraft, I mean, you have no idea what it frees up the offense so much. So all of that, a very long-winded to say, I'm not bringing back Chigakakwo. I think he's going to get way overpaid for what he is.
Yeah,
you got in an actual inline tight end in Gunnar Helm last year who was really, really good as a rookie. He's going to be your one going forward. On to Arden Key, another guy that's going to get more money than I'd be comfortable paying. I think he's always been a rotational DPR at this point. He's losing kind of his one trick. The burst and the bend are not what they used to be with him aging. I'm not going to bring him back. Zeitler is a conversation because I think it's more of a question of is he going to keep playing rather than is he going to come back? Because he wants to be back in Tennessee. He said that before if he doesn't retire. But I thought second half of the year, Zeitler was extremely disappointing. I just think it sucks to say for a guy that has been a staple of the interior offensive line position in the NFL for so long, who is just the model of good guard play. The age, I think Father Time has just finally caught up to him a little bit. And you've still got Jackson Slater waiting in the wings. I don't think you're ready for him to take over, but I would prefer really to go find another mercenary guard rather than keep Zeitler around. Just because I thought at 36, it's bound to catch up with you, and I think it did this past year for Zeitler. So I'm not going to bring him back. Oli Udoh is another weird conversation. I think this is more to do with simulation than it is the real world conversation, because the simulation has him getting $17 million annually. and he's a backup swing tackle. Like I think his
If he
best
gets
case
paid
is maybe 9 or
17,
10.
man, good for him. If he gets 17,
Seriously.
then good for him.
So, and I really like teams were, he's been a hot commodity. There were serious trade offers trying to get Udo from Tennessee this year. And I mean, I understand why. Like he's a very valuable asset to a roster. He's somebody that, do you want him as your starting tackle? No, but he's one of the very few guys really on the planet that can come in and give you serviceable tackle play when one of your two guys gets injured. So he had to come in at points for both Dan Moore and J.C. Latham, and I thought he was fine when he had to. But because of that, I think he's going to get, once again, he's going to get paid handsomely. And I think there are other swing tackles in free agency that are going to give you the same thing Udo did that aren't going to get paid quite as much. So, am I being cheap and frugal and having the value discussion for a backup swing tackle with $130 million in the bank account? Yes. Is that wrong? Probably. But for the sake of the exercise, I'm going to test my options on a swing tackle in free agency. And there's kind of somebody I have in mind that I'm excited to ask you about when we get to that point. So I'm going to let Udo go too.
But I think it's a fair conversation though, because again, I don't think he's worth 17. I mean, I'd pay him 12, but I don't think he's worth 17 a year. And you might have 130, but I mean, I think this free agent class is actually pretty fun, like top to bottom. And in a team in the position that Titans are, I would much rather spend $130 million on incoming upgrades opposed to, retaining offensive linemen. I'm a big advocate for. It's about having the most cohesive five, not necessarily the best five. But this isn't an O-line conversation. This is we have holes on the roster that need to be addressed yesterday. And one of those holes is not swing tackle, and letting Udo go doesn't necessarily create a hole. So we're going to prioritize this $130 million and get better opposed to staying the same. Because again, every player you retain, for better or worse, you are staying the same because that player was already on the team, and they might take a step, but you can only get so much better. So I agree 100%.
And going on the conversation, I'll offer him 12 just to see, do you keep the cohesion? If he accepts it, that's great. If not, I'm not crying about it. I'll go find somebody
100%.
in free agency. Okay. Yeah. You get rejected.
Go.
I'll let him walk. It is what it is. James Lynch, you just traded Devondre Sweat. James Lynch is solid, a solid interior rotation guy. I'm bringing him back. No questions asked. Jalen Arbor-Davis and Kyrie Gilmore were both bad. I'm not going to spend time talking about those guys. Bryce Oliver, retain. He's on a tender. What's he called? Not
exclusive rights.
Exclusive rights. Thank you. I am just total loss of words right there.
You're good. We just learned that a couple minutes ago.
That's true. That was something that I've had to do a lot of learning on free agency and cap talk recently.
Yes, sir.
CJ Ravenel, not going to be a guy you bring back. Van Jefferson, the corpse of Van Jefferson, not going to bring him back. Jihad Ward,
generous.
Yeah, seriously. Jihad Ward was easily probably my favorite watch, honestly, or one of outside of Cam Ward of the Titans roster this past year, because you brought him in as a after camp addition, like last minute before the season starts, to be just an extra body in the edge room, and he was probably your best edge rusher throughout the entire year.
What a firecracker!
This guy is 30 years old and still 32 years old,
and
still brings one of the best speed to powers that I saw this year. And I'm bringing him back. He deserves what he's going to get paid here. I'll bring him back for 1 year because, again, older. I'll give him 1 year, $6. I think that's fine. You're keeping him around as a guy that can play, 5 tech on rundowns, kick inside on pass downs. Just a valuable veteran presence in a edge room that you're still doing a lot of work in rebuilding. So I think it should, again, be a no-brainer to bring back Jihad Ward. Blake Hance, not bringing him back. Not bringing him back. Not bringing James Prochet back. Mike Brown, Kamon Hall, Anthony Orgy. Sebastian Joseph Day is the next guy on this list that I think deserves a huge spotlight. Again, even more magnified after trading Devondre Sweat. Sebastian Joseph Day has been just a plus starter on the interior consistently through his whole time in Tennessee. This guy gives you more pass rush juice on the interior than anybody not named Jeffrey Simmons that this team has seen in a long time. And I think it should be, again, a no-brainer bringing him back. I'm going to give him 2 years, I think a little over 4.5 annually. I think that makes sense to bring him back. Julius Chestnut, not going to bring him back. Garrett Dellinger, a guy that we talked a surprising amount about pre-draft. I kind of forgot he was on this team. Probably not going to bring him back. Brandon Allen, definitely not. Joey Sly was the best kicker this team has seen since Ryan Suckup. You're definitely bringing him back at, I think, 2 years, $6 million annually is fine. Morgan Cox, master of his craft, best long snapper in the NFL. I don't actually know how to evaluate long snappers. I'm disingenuous there, but he's been great. You're going to bring him back as long as he'll keep playing. Johnny Hekker was bad, but at a certain point, like obviously you retain John Fassel as the special teams coordinator. He did a great job kind of revolutionizing the special teams unit. And he went out and brought in Hekker. I mean, they have a long history. Like Hekker is his guy. So I think that Hekker wasn't good by any stretch, but I am not going to pretend to know what the free agent punter market looks like. And I think that there is a reason that John Fassel brought him in. John Fassel was retained under the new staff. I'm going to keep Johnny Hekker around, not for more than, 1 year, 2.9, and just let it be what it is. Corey Levin, this guy is going to be my – I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it here. This guy's my starting center this year. I know I didn't cut Lloyd Cushenberry because he probably should have been a conversation earlier than he is now. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on him. I know a lot of it is post-Achilles tear recovery. But when you have a guy as undersized as Cushenberry is, and he's really living off that short area burst and his ability to work in space, when you lose that off of an Achilles, and it's been 2 years at this point, like he's not getting it back. You've seen it 2 years in a row. The guy doesn't move as well as he used to. He was probably, an offensive line that was firmly mid-tier, I thought, this year. He was your biggest liability on the interior in pass protection, with next to a 36-year-old Zeitler and obviously an all-pro in Scarante, or should have been an all-pro. But Cushenberry was a disaster at center this year. And the one game that he missed with injury against the Cleveland Browns where Corey Levin came in, Tennessee saw their best rushing success like tenfold. I mean, the zone scheme worked so much. Everything gelled so much easier with Corey Levin working as the center in space. He's floated around as your practice squad kind of Band-Aid guy for a while. And I think that, like that Browns game, he deserves to get a starting center contract just for that tape. I mean, I would, if anybody is just looking for some time to kill on a Friday night and you want to watch some Corey Levin film, go watch the Week 14 game against the Cleveland Browns, and he'll put on a pin and pull clinic. So that was more time than anybody should probably ever spend on Corey Levin, but I think that he is criminally underrated. And will this happen in real life? Definitely, probably not. But Corey Levin should be Tennessee's starting center in 2026, and I'll die on that hill.
I'm going to look up the film now because I'm a huge pin and pull guy, so I'm definitely going to dive into some Corey Levin here.
There's a reason that Tony Pollard had his best game of the year against Cleveland, and it's because of Corey Levin.
I've had a great time as you've gone through this roster, just seeing like the Bengals influence like throughout, whether it's recent Bengals, old Bengals that just happened to land here. I mean, you got Joe Bacci, who was one of my favorite Bengals on the linebacker, one of my favorite linebackers for the Bengals. Just a depth guy that just wasn't able to like break into the top two. They were really running two, maybe three linebackers, but he was getting a rotational role. I kept pushing for him, pushing. Never happened. We ended up letting him walk. He ends up in Tennessee. I just can't find the field. He's just like a special teams ace that can't find the field on defense. And then you got Zeitler, who obviously the Bengals also let walk. That one stung for quite some time. I'm trying to remember the other guys you were going. Brandon Allen, former Bengal. It's just funny to and a lot of these guys I just expect to go purely because they were probably Callahan guys that he was familiar with that he could grab and bring with him. So, but it is kind of funny. My favorite part of going through rosters and doing these offseason things is just seeing the player movement and being like, oh, I forgot that he was here. Or I didn't know he was on this team. Well, it's funny that he probably came with so-and-so. But anyway, just a fun little, Bengals fan doing a Titans rebuild. I had the first thing I noticed was like, whoa, I know these guys.
Yeah, it really is. You nailed it with the Brian Callahan influence. There's just so many of his guys that kind of you're going to have to make a mass exodus out of, where you just have to part ways with a lot of the last regime. And now with all of the pending free agents and the tenders and all of the really boring stuff out of the way, we can move on to the fun part, which is
picking up George Pickens to pair with Calvin Ridley.
Yes, exactly. Pick up George Pickens, who is definitely available and has not been franchise tagged. So I'll leave the order up to you. What order of positions do you want to address this in? I'd say biggest need, corner is the most immediate need, obviously, because you have two bodies in the room only. I think you have to add edge and receivers. Those are got to be big ticket signings. I would add somebody at tight end. We have a major hole at running back. now after cutting Pollard. That's one of the premier options. And then I'd probably like to add some depth at maybe
Whoa,
D-line and
whoa,
safety.
whoa! Pump the brakes. Major hole. We're gonna draft Love at 4. We're fine. We're fine.
See, this is where the assistant GM
We're
might get
fine.
fired right here.
We're fine.
Already halfway through this mock off season. So spoiler
No.
alert, we're gonna solve running back here and not in the draft.
No, so how I would attack this just from a foundational perspective of team building. I'm attacking this defense because I think if you're a bad team, you need to invest in your defense, invest in your special teams, win the field position battle, get off the field on defense, and then we're gonna probably address running back first on offense. Then we'll get to receivers if we need to. But I think cornerback, D-line, running back is probably the order we need to go in here.
I like it. So starting at corner, which I think is smart. This is the biggest need on the entire team. You really, I mean, we got to add. I'd say probably 2 in free agency and at least 1 in the top 100 in the draft when I'm evaluating this. Because corner is a floor position on your roster. Like you've got to get a stable floor.
Agree.
At the corner position, and the reality, it's like you hear blank slate a lot. This is as blank of a slate at a position group on a roster you're going to see. I mean, you have Darrell Baker as a 2-year removed at this point waiver claim, and a 6th-round rookie who just is coming off of, like I mentioned earlier, a lower body injury. So you've really got
a blank slate and $100 million, man. You can build.
That's all you can ask for at this point. And the first guy has really been my dream pick in free agency through most of this offseason so far is Alontae Taylor from the Saints. Obviously, you've got the former Tennessee Volunteer connection. I believe he's from near Nashville too, if I'm not wrong about that. And I think just stylistically, again, he fits the long, physical, aggressive corner mold that they want. I think he is in a reasonable price range. He's got the nickel and the outside versatility. I think Alontae Taylor could do wonders for where the corner room is right now, and I just think he's an immediate plug-and-play starter. How do you feel, say, we give Alontae Taylor 3 years, 10 and a half, 11? 10 and a half?
So I got to ask before we do this, is Alontae Taylor worth more at 10 and a half than Greg Newsome is at 11.2?
I think so. And that's partly because I just really like Taylor as a player.
Yeah,
maybe there's some personal bias as an evaluator, but also I think for the sake of the exercise, I'm not sure Newsome is here on March. What date is free agency open? March 9th, 10th?
Something like that. I got it written down somewhere.
Whatever day it opens, I'm not sure Greg Newsome's there. And I'm pretty confident Alontae Taylor will be, or I'm at least more confident.
Oh, for sure. I think Taylor's there 100%. I just wanted to make sure because that's also, again, another offseason simulator gripe, but there's a lot of players that are available or listed as free agents that aren't. So I think this is a great example of that. But no, I'm actually a big fan of Alontae Taylor. I do think Greg Newsome is better, obviously, but I mean, if you told me Alontae Taylor was going to be a Bengal tomorrow, I'd be pumped because we also need quarterback help. So I think that's a great signing. I think 10.5 is good value too. I'm always a big fan of taking guys past 30 if they're already over 27. If they're 27, I try and take them to 30. But if you're 28, I'm more than happy to give you a 3-year, take it to 31. Now, when you're 29, then that's when we cut it down to 2 years. So I think 3 years keeps them interested in Tennessee because I don't know how. I mean, it says market value is 2 years. I don't know how many teams are giving out 2-year deals. I know some players are pushing for the shorter deal, but I think 3 years, 10.5 is great because Alontae Taylor is probably going to be like a staple in that room for 3 years. Hopefully.
Yeah. And then there you go. It's accepted. So now you've got hunter number 1, at least as of now, in Alontae Taylor. And I mentioned earlier, I think it would be worthwhile to at least talk about maybe adding a second guy in free agency, but I think maybe that's something we come back to after addressing some of the other needs. So let's move to, you said corner, running back, then D-line, correct?
I said corner, D-line, and running back.
D-line, and running back. Okay. You want to start with edge or interior?
It might be because I'm on D-line kick right now.
Could be.
I want to say much more immediate. I want to say edge, but we're picking 4. So this is where, do we go get an interior guy and then a cheaper?
Yeah, but I think you got to add. I think you really could be in the market for a relatively big ticket edge signing in free agency and a guy at 4.
Who's on the
Because you're
market?
looking
Who's on the market? Who's on the market? Who's on the market?
going from the top here. These two aren't happening. Neither is Khalil Mack.
No, I think
really
Trey Hendrickson
here.
is a great fit.
Yes, send the GDP of Guatemala to a 35-year-old edge rusher for the stake this roster's in.
Don't worry, we're going to anyway. Don't worry.
Yeah, I think it really starts in Malcolm Kuntz. I think this is really your. I don't think Muhammad ends up being on here. Like the Lions are in a similar situation where they have Aiden Hutchinson and nobody, so he's going to stay in Detroit. But like Joseph Asai, guy you're very familiar with, I think he hits the market. Malcolm Kuntz definitely hits the market. Kwity Paye definitely hits the market. Who, spoiler alert, is my favorite by far of this group. Clement Jason, does he? I mean, he had a great year for New England. They haven't needed edge. They probably end up retaining him, but worthwhile. But Afe Owe, they traded major capital to get him. I don't think he's there. Yeah. Clowney, Farrell, Floyd, this is when you start getting into the rotational guy market. So I think really your conversation is between Malcolm Kuntz, Joseph Asai, and Kwity Paye. And we could tentatively say Chase on, but I feel a lot less confident about him being available than some of these others.
See, and that's funny because I was like eyeing Chase on because I'm a big believer, and I'll do it when we run through the Bengals. And I already have in a couple, but I think Osai gets extended early, just because of the whole Hendrickson situation. And Osai's been now a starter for 2 years. Through all the Trey Hendrickson drama, or not a starter, I guess 2 years ago, but a heavy rotational guy and a starter last year, with all of that going on. So I think Osai gets extended just because he's young. He still has traits and he has experience in the NFL, and he still have a lot of other options in the room right now. The edge room's really shallow. So I think I don't see Osai as an option. I'm more than happy to entertain it, especially at 11.5. I think I have him getting extended for more than that. So I would love to hear your thoughts on Kuntz.
He was a guy that I was kind of all in on for Tennessee last free agency cycle, and not necessarily quite the level of impact in Vegas this year that I was expecting from him. But I still think he's firmly an option. But I think if we're paying all of these guys are generally in the same financial caliber. If I'm paying that kind of money to somebody on this list, I keep going back to Kwity Paye. I think that
I'm so glad you said that because that's exactly where I was at. I just wanted to make sure.
And like he's got the power. Something I've noticed, just as a theme, not to get too broad and big picture and philosophical here at this point, because I've already done that too much so far. But I flipped on my head a lot as an evaluator on a lot of positions. And edge rusher is one of them for sure. Where I used to be kind of I love the bendy speed guys. This year, I love the power rushers. I think that's where I've gone to, and Kwity Paye gives you all the power that you want. And the thing that makes this really realistic to me is the Gus Bradley connection. Obviously, new defensive coordinator in Tennessee under Saleh. Kwity Paye was a Gus Bradley guy in Indianapolis. I think that it makes a lot of sense, And if you add Kwity Paye here for, what do we think? Another 3-year deal? 3-year deal? Is that where we're in?
Oh yeah, 100%.
3 or 4.
3.
Like, say you give him 3, I think 11 or 12 for 3.
I'm comfortable doing 12 for 3 because that's going to age so well. I mean, a $12 million contract in 3 years is going to be nothing.
Exactly, and that's an important. I'm glad you brought that up because that's an important thing when you look at the face value of these free agency signings. People said that about the Calvin Ridley signing at the time, and obviously as a player, it didn't age too well. But financially, people laughed the Titans out of the building because it looked so. It was sticker shocking at first when that deal came out. But then you see some of the big ticket deals that get done, and in 2 or 3 years, when you're looking back at that, that signing was great value. So I mean, when you look at the financial in the rate that it's increasing in the NFL, I think that it's stuff is going to look a lot better in 2 or 3 years than when they signed the dotted line. So I think adding Kwity Paye with a connection, at a premium position like that,
we see edge the market gets reset for edge at minimum every other year, but I'd say arguably every year unless it's like a down year. I think it's more rare to see a year where it doesn't get reset by somebody than it does, vice versa. So I mean, but yeah, no, Kwity Paye was the guy I was eyeing. Like I said, it was Paye or Chase on for me, just because I'm not a fan of Kuntz. I didn't think Osai was going to be available. I'm not paying Muhammad that much, whether that's realistic or a sim thing. It's not going to happen, even though we have $93.5 million right now. So, but yeah, Pay for 12. I like Pay as a prospect coming out. I think he's a really good player. It's great to hear that I found another convert to the power edge game. I'm gonna prefer the run first defensive ends every single time because the NFL isn't the college football game where they're passing the ball 80 times a game. Some teams do every now and then, but you need guys that can stop the run, especially if you're trying to set a floor for your team, like you already mentioned. And I will be on the floor table until I die, which is a funny sentence, but raising your floor will always be more important than raising your ceiling because there's guys that will never see the ceiling. There's teams that will never see the ceiling. Raise your floor, raise the standard for how bad can we be, and good things will happen. So I think Quiddy Pay at 12 is awesome, personally.
Yeah, so I think you send him this, you get him in there. That's two major splash additions to the defense here, and like you almost Jihad Ward. I already talked about him. I think he's a quality guy you can consider part of the rotation. Outside of him on the edge, like there's really nobody I don't think you can consider as a factor. Like Femi Oladejo was again 5 games. You knew he was raw coming in. He only played 8 games of edge rusher in college. So I'm not trying to make a permanent statement on him or send the alarm bells off. Like the guy's got plenty of time left to develop. But in the 5 games you got to see Femi Oladejo play, he was flat out bad as an edge rusher. Like didn't look like he could play edge rusher in the NFL bad. Jalen Harrell has surprisingly developed into like a really solid DPR, but again, he's more of a 4th guy in a rotation. So when you're talking about actual, quality bodies, like, yeah, you still have the 4th overall pick that we might, spoiler alert, devote to an edge. But outside, like, you got to, Quiddy Pay, Jihad Ward, and then another guy, like, that's a pretty solid start to kicking off this edge rebuild. And then the potential for Oladejo to develop into something, you take the pressure off of him to have to be that guy. So I love the Quiddy Pay fit here. Obviously, the Gus Bradley connection. I love him as a player. I love the value. Everything about that signing is awesome to me. Kicking inside to defensive tackle here, and this is more of an interesting conversation because I think obviously you've got who I believe to be the best defensive tackle in football right now in Jeffrey Simmons. You brought back Sebastian Joseph Day, who I think is a fine 2 in a rotation. Traded T'Vondre Sweat. Brought back James Lynch's depth. I was semi-impressed by what I saw from Cam Horsley, the UDFA from Boston College last year. But I don't know if he's really a guy that you trust to be your number 4. You might look to add kind of more of a depth guy here. But I'll let you kind of hop in the driver's seat on this defensive tackle signing. If you wanted to go with a 3rd or 4th guy in rotation depth signing, who's on your radar here?
Oh, man, dude. This is a take that I've been scared to put out in the world because of just I've seen some posts and maybe they're the minority, but I think the Titans could use another 3-name defensive tackle. Maybe potentially one coming out of Denver by the name of John Franklin Myers.
Wow.
I'm a big fan of John Franklin Myers, and the PFF grade is low, but if you look at it, and it's PFF, so
he was awesome. That's garbage.
That's what people look at. But no, this is the funny part. So his overall grade 61.3, which 60 is like an average starter in the league. So it's like he again for a deep guy in the rotation. I mean, I think that's good value already. But then let's pop over to the next category. 68.9 pass rush grade. That's better than 61.3. So surely the run defense is awful. Nope, 65.4. So tell me why the grade's a 61 when he's almost a 70 pass rush grade and a 65 run defense grade. That is a good defensive tackle. And the film is arguably better than that at times. And so I think, again, 12 million is probably expensive for who he is, how old he is. But this is a perfect example of like a 12 million, 2-year deal. Wipe the hands. That's a good add to the room, in my opinion. I'm a huge fan of like his market right now.
Yeah, I mean, like
definitely understand if you're not. Definitely understand if you're not.
Yeah, I mean, this is tough because if you're talking about pure like what I think of them as players, there are not very many players on this list that I think are better football players, if any, than John Franklin.
I agree. I think he's one of the best guys on the market this year. He's going to get
absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing is after dealing out 12 to Quiddy Pay, 12 to Alontae Taylor, still you've got to hand out a big ticket running back contract. You got to add somebody at receiver.
No, we just take running back at 4.
Oh, see, then I got to sign another edge, and there's really nobody there that I want to sign. So, we can keep talking in circles there. It's not going to happen. Because I really like it. I like the contract, but I wonder if I'm willing to pull the financial trigger right there, which seems stupid to say with still $80 million in cap space, but like that'll drain quick.
It's great. But that's why I think you make it a 2-year deal. You get out of it pretty soon. You're getting that money right back. Again, $12 million even next year probably looks good. $12 million out of 300, it's fine. I get the hesitation, and if I'm more than willing to hear you out on other names. Overall, this feels like a very old defensive tackle class that I'm just not crazy impressed with. And I think John Franklin Myers is a really good football player.
And I don't really have a rebuttal because if I had another name, I'd give it to you, but I really don't. And I think that you really we got to address some of the holes with this being 3 financially demanding signings in a row. But I like it. I like the addition to the defense, and I think you're setting up a Robert Saleh defense to have a crazy year 1 turnaround with bones you laid in free agency.
I'm also a huge advocate for your defensive interior will make your edge room look better. And so if we're kind of iffy on the edge room, even if we are going to add a guy in the draft or a couple guys in the draft, we grab the guy in free agency. Getting the best guys on the interior that we can is going to make our edge room better. And so I'm just okay. I'm okay paying that money because I'm also in the back of my mind allocating part of that to the edge room because that's going to improve it. So, but that's probably just false mentality that I shouldn't have, but it's true.
So moving on to running back, I don't want this to be a dictatorship at all at any point in this episode, but there are a couple times where I'm going to have to hit the override button, and this is something that this is a fit that I mentioned. I don't want this to seem like it's recency bias after the Super Bowl either. I'm not just jumping on the bandwagon. I wrote this piece 5-6 weeks ago at this point. Again, paulkuharski.com. You can go read the 7,000 words if you're that brave. I signed Kenneth Walker, a month before or not before the playoffs started, but a month before the Super Bowl. Kenneth Walker has been a player that I've been high on since his rookie season, since he was at Michigan State. I've loved Kenneth Walker. It seems at this point, Seattle's already confirmed they're not using the tag on him. Seattle has way too many people to pay to keep Kenneth Walker around. I'm as confident as I can be he's going to hit the market. The Titans should be lined up.
No matter what the drunk GM says on the float. It does not matter what the drunk GM says on the float. Please continue.
The Titans should be standing outside of Seattle's facility, next to his moving truck with a blank checkbook. We're signing Kenneth Walker, another 3-year deal. I'm going to give him 11-3, and we're going to bring him in. He's your new running back behind Cam Ward. I don't love his pass pro, but I think Tyjae Spears is outstanding in pass protection, so I'm not too worried about that at this point. And I think you've immediately set a much higher floor for your run game than you could with anyone in the draft, any other of these free agents, higher than it would have been with Tony Pollard. I love that signing. Moving on to, I would say the next thing would be
one thing real quick.
Yeah, go for
it. I would love to hear your thoughts on with the K9 signing. And this goes against everything I believe in, so just keep that in mind. But would you be willing to give him 5 years?
Are we getting into the weeds of when we get outs and that kind of stuff, like the guarantees? Because
I just mean like high level. Would you be willing to take that guy? Are you kind of giving him that deal where it's like, hey, we want you here, we want that, you've retired, you got to get that whole spiel. Like, is it worth it? If it's like, hey, I'll stay in Seattle if you're going to give me 3, but if you give me 5, I'll come to Tennessee. Are you giving him 5?
I don't know if I'm too gun shy on running backs to think that.
And like I said, it's against my MO. My answer is no.
Yeah, I don't think I can. They're too replaceable. They're too a dime a dozen to find late in the draft. I think I'm not against giving a running back. Like, I think Titans are in a prime position to give a big second contract to a running back. I'm not against that, going out of the market to do that. I am against giving them into their 30s and stuff. Like late 20s, I think you got to cut the cord on a running back. Just find somebody new. So I don't think I give him that, but I'm comfortable with 3. Moving on to the second part of the offense, we're going to dive into receiver here. Pickens already off the market. Deebo Samuel, not no, but hell no. Also, what is that? That market value is crazy. Yeah. Wan'Dale Robinson is one of the more intriguing conversations in regards to the Titans. so far because obviously you've got Brian Daboll coming in. Wandale was a Daboll guy in New York, somebody that Daboll really valued in that offense. Do I like Wandale Robinson as a player? Yeah, I liked him at Kentucky. I mean, I've liked him in New York. Is Wandale Robinson a $20 million a year player,
No.
which is what he's going to get? Absolutely not. And I think after what you've added so far, I don't think that's like Chimere Dike can give you everything Wandale Robinson did in a 6'2", 200-pound frame, along with being a first-team All-Pro returner. I don't like giving gadget guys $20 million a year. I can't stomach that with Wandale, regardless of what the connection is with Dayball.
Well, don't worry, because I heard recently that Alec Pierce is just as good as T. Higgins. So,
yeah, I mean, even with those competitions as they be, I don't think Alec Pierce is going to hit the market either way. So, I don't think Wandale's going to hit the market either. Honestly, I think New York is going to do what it takes to retain him. So
this is going to be a year where a lot of receivers are retained. Honestly, I think this is a year where not a lot. These guys aren't hitting the market, man.
You look at it at face value, and this seems like, oh, this is a great receiver class, right? This looks stacked. Just looking at face value names, this list starts at Romeo Doubs. None of these guys are. Maybe Debo does, but Debo doesn't belong this high. Debo's cooked. These guys are these top names. I mean, George Pickens has already been tagged. These guys are not hitting free agency. Coker is obviously not hitting free agency, or else I'd be jumping on that. I love Jalen Coker, and I know he's a shadow
team.
There it is. So I think it starts with Romeo Doubs, and I just think Romeo Doubs has been what the Titans have been doing at receiver for the past 2 decades, and it hasn't ever worked. You're just getting fringe level, maybe wide receiver 2 type guys. He's going to get paid higher than that. I've heard again whispers that the personality isn't great, and Mike Borgonzi has put a serious emphasis on culture fit at this point, and a kind of an unwillingness ultimately to add those kind of guys into this locker room. So I don't think Dobbs is the most likely fit either. Mike Evans, not going to happen. Juwan Jennings, another guy that's been mentioned a lot, former Tennessee Volunteer, has a solid connection from San Francisco. But again, I think Juwan Jennings is just like a high-end wide receiver 3 at this point, and I'm not going to pay him $20 million a year to be a high-end wide receiver 3. I'm just not going to stomach that. I think that this year you're not going to find a quality receiver in free agency this year. Once all the dust has settled, and especially with the position Tennessee is in, I think it is so much more worth it to let your young guys develop, go get a guy in the draft, and find a young developmental borderline 2 and 3 in free agency, which is really what I'm hunting here.
That's exactly what I wanted to bring up. Like I want this guy to be 24 to 27. I want him to be no more than like 10 million. No, hopefully no more than 8 million. And just let him bring him in and let him be a part of the competition in the room. Because I'm not in a position where I want to commit to a receiver right now. And this is again where I go back to having the 26 from Ridley would be nice because now we can invest. But again, it's not worth having that money to invest back into wide receiver because there's not receivers that are worth that money right now. And so again, I agree 100%. Let's go find a young guy that's looking for his second contract, that wants to come in, that's going to compete. He's going to try and go win that number 1 job. And like, I think, getting a guy or 2 in free agency that are just competitive roster guys on 1-year deals, I think is a great strat for this room.
Yeah, and I've boiled it down to 2 guys here who I think both fit that mold comfortably, and I really like both of them as players. So I'm going to pitch this one over to you and get your opinion on it because I kind of have a personal bias here because one of the players I've loved his entire NFL career, and I was clamoring for him at the trade deadline. That's between Jalen Naylor, the Vikings receiver right here, and Rashid Shaheed coming off the Seahawks. And again, I know the Seahawks traded an early day 3 pick for him. You'd think they wouldn't let him walk. But again, the reality is the Seattle can't pay a lot. The Super Bowl tax is real. They can't afford to keep that roster together. And I think Shaheed is going to be one of the first guys that they can let go because I just think they view him as one of the less valuable pieces they need to retain.
Well, I think he was just a good ad, like a down the stretch ad. Like, hey, we need a little bit of juice going to the back end.
He was a trade deadline sweetener. Like he was never part of their long-term plans, I don't think.
Thanks for coming here and helping us out, but that's really all we needed you for. So, I mean,
exactly.
I think that's very fair.
What face value? What do you like better between those 2 guys?
Well, I want to go on a limb and say you're going to be Camp Shaheed. And
you nailed it.
I've been talking with Drew long enough about receivers to know his flavor of receiver. Okay.
It's not hard to find out.
Is Kyle Williams available? Does one Kyle Williams
Yeah,
receive?
please.
I kind of like Shaheed, and I kind of like because what'll get spun by like the social media storm is going to be like, oh man, they went out inside K9, they signed Rashid Shaheed, like they're invested. They saw these guys, they know how to win. They're Super Bowl guys. They're going to bring that culture with them, and I just love that like aspect of things. So I think I kind of got to be Team Shaheed too. I just love like again the skill set that he brings, man. Like you're going to get a burner.
Yeah, I've been preaching Rashid Shaheed since he was in year 2 with the Saints. At this point, he got buried because nobody cared about the Saints when he was dominating over there, and he really like early in his career he got the label of this only field stretching deep threat. That's all he can really do is run straight, which was true for a little bit, but there was so much development in New Orleans that went under the radar with Shaheed. He turned into a real 3-level separator. Like he's a true quality NFL Z receiver, and there are people that say that he does the same thing as Trim Ray DK. I think that having a couple of guys that are really fast and separate really well is a good thing. I think you should want multiple of those guys. And obviously, is Shaheed going to bring over the same special teams value? No, because DK is your first team offer returner as a rookie, which again, good thing to have 2 of those guys. So I don't see why you wouldn't want 2 elite athlete separators with Shaheed and DK. So I mean, what do we like? Do we think 2 is a sweet spot for him, or are we giving a 3-year deal?
Hear me out and try 2 for 7.5. Yeah,
there it is.
That's perfect right there.
So I mean, I think like you bring in a guy who is old enough to have that veteran presence. You've seen him be a successful 3-level separator. He has a fully flushed out Z skill set. He's got the yak juice. Again, brings the special teams juice, but you don't really need it because of DK. So I think Shaheed brings in a presence that every team needs, but especially a team that has the holes at receiver that Tennessee does.
What would be your thoughts on adding both?
Naylor and Shaheed, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, you could. I think part of it is the money because I think Naylor is actually going to get a lot more than people think.
I don't disagree with that at all.
And I don't really want to dish out 15 or 13, whatever it is for Naylor at this point. We're kind of dwindling down the money. I have other places I want to address. And also, I mean, there's some receivers in this class this is a good receiver class. And there's some guys that I really like. And I kind of plan to add one in the first 3 rounds. And I think if you could roll in to a year, do you have a true one? Probably not. But I mean, unless you maybe add a guy at 4. But say you add a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round, rolling in with a second, top 100 draft pick at receiver, Rashid Shaheed, Chimere DK, and the ghost of Calvin Ridley, and then Alec Iamander, who might be a fringe developmental guy. That feels like a pretty solid floor. Is it the highest ceiling position group? Probably not. You don't have a 1 for Cam Ward, which kind of sucks, but it's not a 1-year fix. And I think compared to where you were last year, I feel really good about that receiver room. So I'm probably going to hold off until the draft to add any more talent there.
But again, like you said, though, I mean, you're young, and I feel like the floor is fine. Like the floor of the room is something I feel good about, and you're young enough to have enough wiggle room that these guys can step into different roles. They can develop their skill sets. They can get better. Like these players aren't necessarily going to get worse over the next 2 years. And that's what we really need to look for, in my opinion. I think so many people chase that, like, oh, we got the young quarterback, let's go get wide receiver 1. But why not give your quarterback just more options? I've always said that, the rookie quarterback and the backup quarterback's best friend is a tight end. And I think nowadays, the better friend, quote unquote, is a high floor receiver room. You've got guys with speed that can separate. They're going to get you good yak. They're going to make the throws easier for you. They're going to make the whole process easier for a young quarterback. And I think this is the right way to do it. I think it might not be the flashy way, it might not be the way that people want you to, but I think this is the best way to build. And again, we're building the Super Bowl winner here, not contender. We're building the Super Bowl winner right here.
Absolutely. So,
got to raise that floor.
Absolutely. So moving on past that, I think we've patched most of the major holes. I think coming into some of the other kind of secondary needs that I think you need to fill. Got to get a tight end too. Have to get a new swing tackle after letting Udo go, and I'd like to add another safety. And then once that's all done, I'll dive back into potentially adding a second corner, but that'll be the last thing I do before we dive into a mock draft.
That's what I was
Starting
going
at
to
tight
ask,
end,
because I was wondering if you had any interest in one Josh Jobe.
I've heard the Job name thrown around a lot, and I get it. Like, he was good for Seattle this year, and he's going to get paid like it. He's going to get higher than people think on the annual.
I don't disagree at all.
He's 5'11", 180, and I think that, justified or not, again, I tend to kind of hate measurement requirements that teams have, because I think that evaluation deserves more nuance than that. But the reality is that teams have certain thresholds when it comes to measurables, especially at corner. And I don't think Job is the kind of fits the physical mold that Tennessee wants in a corner. So I don't think he's really going to be on their radar. And if we dive back to corner, there is one guy that I think would be a fun fit that I will talk about a little bit later. But
Perfect.
After letting Chig go, I think you need to address tight end.
For sure.
And there are kind of two guys that I'm looking at here, maybe three. The first is Daniel Bellinger, because, again, you've got the clear connection from Dayball in New York. He's still really young, only 26. I think he's somebody that brings some level of inline blocking value. And I think he's pairing him with Gunnar Helm gives you an okay 1-2 punch at tight end. They're both young. They're both developmental. I think if you want to pay a little bit more of a tax and get a guy who's more of a sure commodity and really gives you, really opens things up in 12 personnel, I'm looking at Cade Otton. I mean, Cade Otton is somebody that I trust much more than just about anybody else on this list in line. I think he's, again, what we were talking about earlier, great inline blocker, serviceable enough receiver. So I think if you pair him with a guy who, with Gunnar Helm, is more of a serviceable inline blocker and a much more trusted receiver, you have a really balanced tight end room right there. Question is, how much do I really want to pay Cade Otton? So what would you, if you're paying Cade Otton, let's go conservative and shoot for $11 million, or would you pay Daniel Bellinger $5 million?
I was going to say, the funny part is, I'm immediately pulling the trigger on Bellinger at $5 million, period. I think that's great value. That's a young player. That's a good player. That's check. Let's hit it. So
do it 3 years for $5 million?
I'm down for 3 for $5 million, because, again,
I was going to take up to $4 million, honestly.
For one Daniel Bellinger, that'll take him to 29, which I'm 100% okay cutting a 29-year-old tight end nowadays. I think that is a perfect contract for the situation that we, as the future Super Bowl winning Titans, are at.
There we go.
That was my pick immediately when you went to tight end.
I kind of agree. And as much as I like Cade Otton, I think he's a little bit on the price range.
I'm a huge fan, for sure. Huge fan. I think Cade Otton's going to be pushing 15 by the time he's signed.
And he deserves it. He's awesome.
100%.
But the reality is, you've already spent a lot of money in free agency. You've got Gunnar Helm to be your one. You just want to get a developmental 2. Bellinger is great value. You've got the connection with Dayball. I think it makes a lot of sense. Moving on to something I'm really excited to pick your brain about, and that is a new backup swing tackle. And a guy that you mentioned to me that I've done a little bit of research on that has been a fun fit in my head for a while is Fred Johnson from the Philadelphia Eagles to be your new swing tackle. And
the lore behind that, my relationship with Fred Johnson, we don't have an actual relationship, but the lore behind my Fred Johnson experience is hilarious. Such a, if you know, you know, but that's, big fan of
the other thing I'm looking at too, beyond that, is that I haven't even talked about yet is guard. After letting Zeitler walk, we still, like I said, you've got Jackson Slater waiting in the wings, but I'd really like to add another guy to give him more breathing room to develop. So you're really looking at 2 guys right here. You need a swing tackle and, kind of a stopgap guard option. So which one do you want to address first?
Man, Fred Johnson's fun, but he's old as dirt, isn't he? Isn't he
he's 28, 30, right?
Is he? I thought he was in his 30s.
I just had him pulled up. Hold on. 29.
29. All right. 29 for 13. That's going to be hard for me to swallow. Let's see. Ethan Pochik. Oh, Evan Neal. Evan Neal. That's obviously.
Get him back with Brian Daboll.
The swing. Hey, Cincinnati fans want to pay Dalton Risner about $50 million to stay. So, that's
Titans legend Dylan Radin's bringing back home.
Saints legend Trevor Penning with the Chargers symbol.
There we
go. I'm trying to just look through, Because again, I just feel like the spot that this team's in, I don't want to bring in 30-year-old. Oh, okay. What a see, Rasheed Walker and Jermaine Illuminor are like two of my favorite free agents. I feel like every freaking offseason. And I don't
See, but Illuminor he's another guy that I just feel like
but
is
again,
halfway off limits because like he was so good for New York this year. There's no way they let him go.
I agree. And I see no world where Green Bay has any reason to let Walker go. So I mean, Rasheed Walker is obviously like my favorite tackle on the market, period. So if he's available, that's the guy. I think you just bite the bullet and pay him because that guy's going to be a staple. I think he wins the job, isn't a swing tackle. But if we're thinking like true rotational swing tackle, we gotta scroll down this list a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's where you are because I don't think you can afford to. They're not going to go a different direction than Dan Moore and Latham at this point. They're too dug in there,
Which is
and
again hilarious.
And even if I don't think they feel great about it. Like I think that it's just the kind of the sunk cost fallacy at this point, where like you've already developed that much resources into them, let them ride it out at this point. But you can't even optically. I don't think you can pull it off financially with what we've done at this point. But even optically, you can't hand out another crazy tackle contract after Dan Moore last year.
Yeah. So I scroll up just a little bit. So I don't. His name's Yoshua, I guess it changed, but Josh Neiman. He's kind of bounced around a little bit, and he's a little older, but he keeps getting these super cheap contracts, and I think he's a great, like, he's good. He can play 4 spots for you realistically, and he is a very serviceable backup. Like every time he goes in, I've never really been disappointed in a performance from him. Like actually another guy that's often on the market, which isn't great, but for a depth offensive lineman, I think it's fine. But Neiman is a guy that I would consider, especially if you're able to get him for $2 million, you're getting him for free. And I think he's a very serviceable backup. But I don't know if you have any opinions on Neiman, and I'm interested to look at the rest of the list or more of the list as well. But
I mean,
just a guy that
being fully transparent, past some of the big names at the top, I just haven't watched enough NFL offensive tackles to feel fully educated on this discussion.
But I feel like,
I trust your judgment more.
Realistic targets, in my opinion, are going to be like Ray Dunes, Neiman, Barch. Wait, scroll down. Hold on, scroll down like 2 scrolls. No, I love Sean Ryan, but he doesn't play tackle. I'm getting into the weeds. Yeah, I think those are our 3. I think those are the 3 that we look at. Unless again, you might not know anything about it, but Thayer Munford's interesting, but I'm not paying $7 million for him. So
yeah, I mean I do. Maybe it's because the price tag, and I'm getting kind of frugal at this point. But I do really like Neiman for the price tag he's got.
Yeah. Yeah, Neiman for 2 or Ray Dunes for 1. I think those are both good signings, and you're not really going to regret either of those, no matter what happens. So
maybe it's short-sighted at this point to not invest more into swing tackle because of the health issues that both Latham and Dan Moore had this past season. Maybe I should invest more than I'm going to at this position, but the reality is that I like Neiman. I think you can get him for 2 years, 2 years, $4 million total.
Well, here's the question: like, what are you willing to invest in a swing tackle?
See, that's the other thing. Is like, I think what we offered him is like, I really prefer to stay around 10, but like I wouldn't go above 12. I think for a really good swing tackle, and I'm not sure. I think Udo is good, but is he
high? Is it worth bringing Neiman and Ray Dunes into camp for a total of $4 million?
See, I really again maybe this might be just way too much personal bias involved here, but I watched a lot of Dylan Radunz tape when he was in Tennessee, and I hated all of it. And I also think
I forgot he's already been there. That's fair.
I'm not convinced he's a tackle.
I think you do Neiman. I think it's a 1-year deal. I think you try and do it for 2 flat. And see,
but 2.1, like I'm fine with that.
I mean, it's fine, but I think that's hilarious. Because I was about to say, I mean, this is just a guy like that's a deal you go into, and you're like, okay, there's playing time, benefits. There's active roster, but like there's XYZ. Like he's got to make sure we're playing ball here. What are your thoughts there? I know you're thinking about it, and I know we already made our guy, but I want to know what your thoughts are of Trevor Penning here. We are in, what is it, year 5, 6.
See, I always hated Trevor Penning because he couldn't move.
Fair.
And I know if you're talking about him here, you're talking about him as guard. But I also think there's a lot of personality issues that have been talked about with Penning. And I think you come back to the same thing that I talked about with Romeo Dobbs, where Mike Borgonzi has put a heavy emphasis on keeping the culture fit clean. And I'm not sure Penning really gels with that. But maybe we had a second guy to fight for the tackle spot here eventually. But let's move on to guard because I think that's a bigger conversation.
Oh yeah, and this is a fun interior market this year, and I think it's going to be an active market.
And I think again, another guy you mentioned to me that I did some research on that I ended up signing in my written piece of the offseason simulation is former, I guess, soon to be former Steeler Isaac Seumalo. He was awesome this year. Like, I know there's been some health issues, but when he was healthy, dude, he was an elite guard. And I know he's 33. I think at this point, you're signing him to a mercenary 1-year contract. Same thing you did with Zeitler last year. You're just buying breathing room for Jackson Slater to take over. And we only saw 34 snaps of real football from Jackson Slater this year, and it was in the last game of the season. But they were really, really good snaps against a really, really good defensive line. Like that, he manhandled a lot of guys in that interior line in Jacksonville, and he looked just as good in space as he did all his college career at Sacramento State. So I think if you bring in Seumalo for a 1-year mercenary deal, like Slater's ready next year, and then maybe you look to add another guy in the guard another guard in the draft this year to compete with him. But how do we feel about a Seumalo 1-year deal?
Man, you don't have to sell me on Slater. Huge fan of Slater. You don't have to sell me on Seumalo. Huge fan of Seumalo. Again, just you're getting him for 1 year. He's going to be worth it. I promise. And again, you never know if he gets hurt or XYZ, but just a good football player. Bringing a good football player. He's a little older, but it is what it is, man. He's going to make the room better. And again, I think he's just great for the youth. He's great for the youth in the room. He's going to be great for Slater to learn behind. If he goes down, Slater's not going to have to play extended time like he would otherwise. So you let him be able to pop in and out if Seumalo does have health issues. I think it's a great pairing, honestly. So couldn't love it more, honestly.
Within 1 year 11, that feel good?
1 year 11 tax.
Hey, there it is. New guard in Tennessee. So moving on again, we might add another swing tackle, but I want to address probably safety next. I think that's the last thing that we have to hit in free agency.
The market I'm familiar with most currently.
Yeah, obviously that's a big need for the Bengals, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in an episode coming soon. Spoiler. You're not going to add a big ticket guy here, obviously, because you've got Kevin Winston, who the health isn't great, but when he was healthy in his rookie season, came in as a rookie immediately looking like a high-end box safety. Like, that guy was awesome in the few times he did play as a rookie. Amani Hooker was not good, but you're still, again, you got however many bajillions of dollars sunk into his contract at this point, so it is what it is. He's your safety in the future. As your single high, rangy guy.
Small country.
Seriously. So you're stuck with Amani Hooker as your rangy single high guy. Kevin Winston was awesome as a box safety. I think you let we already cut Xavier Woods earlier. Need a guy to replace that, just that third quality, rotational when you want to play. Because Tennessee, again, I say a lot. This was more out of necessity than it was preference. But they played a lot of 3 safety looks last year. It's something they like to do, and whether that continues in the Sava thing is remains to be seen. But I think that you could really look to add just a mid-tier guy. There's a couple options that I've gone around to. One is that I've really loved is Julian Blackman, a guy that I thought was awesome in Indianapolis, and had an awful injury in week 1 in New Orleans this year, so nobody really got to see him play. I think people have forgotten about him. How far down is he on this list? He's not on this list. Okay, to him as a corner? What's happening there?
He may be a corner.
Whoa. Okay, I don't see Julian Blackman on this simulator at all.
Off to Google. Julian Blackman.
So we'll put a pin in that for now, I guess. Because unless I missed something, he was a free agent to my knowledge. But outside of that, Brian Cook probably might be out of the price range.
Blackman's
safety 3.
One more year.
Does he really? I thought he was done. Wow. Okay.
2026, 1.215.
Okay, wow. I thought he was free agent this year. I'm not sure how I got this far in the process doing that, but Brian Cook, like him a lot. I'm not sure if the Chiefs let him go. Even if they do, I think he might be out of your price range. Jason Pinnock is another guy that I've really liked because he is somebody that Robert Saleh has clearly been very fond of. He's got boundary, nickel, and safety versatility. He's kind of a plug and play band-aid guy in the secondary. I really like the Pinnock fit. I think that's probably been my favorite of kind of the mid-tier safety options. But I don't know, like you said, you're more familiar with this room than I am. Is there anybody else that really jumps out to you to play that kind of band-aid third safety spot?
So I was standing on the table for Pinnock last year. So huge fan of Pinnock. And personally, I think he ends up in Tennessee. I think that is the move because again, I think the solid connection is solid. But the other guys I'd bring up, Cam Curl is a big guy we talked about in the Bengals land. Just because of value and age. I think he's a great just grab and get him on 3 years for $4 million. That's a solid pick, no matter again what happens realistically. And then my third option, typically that I've been bringing up, has been Pinnock, Curl, and Nick Cross. Do you have any thoughts on Nick Cross? I try to pick everybody's brain about him because he's been pretty polarizing from what I heard. Former Colt. I think he's a little more expensive, but I think he might be.
Yeah, he's right here.
Yeah.
Wow, 13 million is not what I expected for Nick Cross.
25 years old.
I mean, that's the youth. There's a tax that comes with that. I'm not going to pretend to have watched enough Nick Cross tape to have an opinion on him.
Oh, you're fine.
But I'd love to hear your thoughts, your elevator pitch on him.
No, again, I think Nick Cross is a guy that I am interested in purely because you sign him for a 4-year, 13 a year, or you get him down to 12.5 over 4 years. That contract looks awesome by year 3. And he's 25, so year 3 is going to be 28. So you're going to get him not only to his prime of allegedly 27. That's like the golden year that everyone tries to work around. But you're getting him all the way till he's 29. So again, you're taking this guy until he's 30. You front load that contract while he's young and hopefully playing well. You do, his year 26 and 27 season, you pay a little bit more for that. I think I'm okay with that. And then you just see how it rides. But I think 13 over 4 years would be great for him. But again, you're not really looking for a long-term safety like the Bengals are, but just a name I wanted to throw out there just into the world because I think Nick Cross is a good option. I'm just interested to see how much he actually get paid. But yeah, Cam Curl, Jason Pinnock are probably my guys. I don't hate your option though. So how much was he asking for?
Who, Pinnock?
No. I thought you said, did you say a third one or did you just say Blackman and Pinnock?
Blackman was my thing, and then he, is clearly not a free agent, so I'm at my job.
Well, I think Pinnock's in Tennessee.
Pinnock is the fit. Like that feels like one of the more obvious free agency fits this year to me. So let's say we bring in Pinnock.
Football player. Good
2 years.
I don't know why he can't get paid, but good football player.
You think 2 years, $5 million is solid there?
I'd be down for 2 years, $5 million for Pinnock for sure.
There we go. You bring in a guy that can be your safety 3. He's got corner versatility. I like that. We are almost out of cap space. We're an hour and a half into this thing. I'm ready to get to the draft.
It's time.
So I don't think there's really anybody else I need to add here. I mean, we added a new swing tackle, added a starting guard, tight end 2, added a receiver, new running back, an edge player, a new tackle. Only added 1 corner, but I think I'm okay with that going into the draft.
But I mean,
with the Pinnock signing,
we touched every room. There.
Yeah, I mean,
almost every room.
I do feel good about this going in. So I think we're gonna end the free agency period there, and we're gonna dive into everybody's favorite part, which is the mock draft. I'm really excited to get to this part, and we will kick it off here. Start button. Cardinal Tate goes 2. Obviously, Mendoza at 1. Arbel Reese goes at 3, and my current number 1 overall player on my board falls to 4. This has been the dream fit the entire process to me, and that is Miami's Ruben Bain, the edge rusher.
I love he's a 3 tech, by the way. Can we just talk about that for like a half second?
Yeah, no, they haven't listed as a 3 tech, which has obviously been a heavy topic discussion. I know the length issues are what they are. I don't care. Bain can be a 5 tech on my team any day, and at the end of the day, I'm the GM now. So he's my 5 tech in the future. Pair him with Kwity Paye. Good luck, tackles with no anchor. You're going to die when you play the Tennessee Titans.
And then again, don't forget who we have on the interior. This defensive line is now once again
John Franklin Myers, Sebastian Joseph Day, and Jeffrey Simmons as your interior rotation. Like, good luck to even if you have an anchor. Good luck.
Oh,
It's over.
Give me Jeffrey Simmons and Ruben Bain on the same side of the football field, brother.
So, I mean, it's a no-brainer to me. Ruben Bain is my number one overall player as of now, and it's not going to change. He is the best football player in this draft class. I will scream that from the rooftops forever. So Ruben Bain can come on to Tennessee. I love the fit, just overwhelming power. You know, like I said, the length limitations are what they are, but to me, he's a 5-tech, best run defender in this edge class to me, comfortably. The hands are incredible. And I think he immediately revolutionizes your edge room. And I think the edge room is relatively rebuilt at this point. Would you still like to add some depth? For sure. But with Kwity Paye, Jihad Ward still being a rotational guy, now Ruben Bain, Oladejo and Harrell as depth pieces, I feel good about where this edge room is now. Top of the second, and obviously I know you're a big Bain guy too, so
fun.
Do you have any thoughts
to draft
add there?
As the Titans, you guys actually have like needs available, your picks. What's that like? I mean, this board couldn't have fallen any better for the Tennessee Titans, theoretically. You got safety, you got an interior defensive lineman, you got a flexible defensive lineman, you got an edge defensive lineman, you got a linebacker in here, you got a corner, Keith Abney sitting down there, you got Pregnant hanging out around. I mean, you got embarrassment of riches right here. You got D'Angelo Pond sneaking around down there. Jeez.
See, and funnily enough, all those names, you didn't mention the one guy that I'm going to pull a dictatorship and draft here again. I'm going to open it up to opinions because I want to hear your thoughts.
It's the right I know where you're going. It's the right guy. It's
going to be Tennessee's Chris Brazzell. And I didn't get around to watching him until this past week because I wrote about him in a Combine piece that's going to be coming out tomorrow. And Chris Brazzell, if you followed me at all last year, I loved Savion Williams at TCU. And I love Ted Hurst. I've talked about him a lot too, the Georgia State receiver. And there's a theme there. It's just the big guys that are fluid. Fluidity and efficiency in the hips is the biggest thing to me when I watch a receiver. And Chris Brazzell has some of the most rare fluidity for a 6'5", 200-pound receiver that I've ever seen in my life. And then you pair that with low 4.4, high 4.3 speed, elite ball tracking downfield, and he plays as big as he should for 6'5" at the catch point. I don't see any reason why Chris Brazzell's not a first-round receiver in this draft class, and I think Chris Brazzell's a number one receiver at the next level. So, do you need to add a corner still? Absolutely. That's something that, we still have a whole opposite. Darrell Baker, like I said, I'm okay with him as the 2, but I'd like to add another top 100 pick there with him and Alontae Taylor on the boundary. But I just can't turn down Chris Brazzell here. I think if you roll into the year with Chris Brazzell, Rashid Shaheed, Chimere Dike, and Calvin Ridley as your 4, you're feeling really okay about that. So that's where I'm going to go here, but I'd love to open up to your opinions here.
Yeah, no, I suspected you were going wide receiver here because I think Brazzell and Chris Bell are 2 extremely underrated wide receivers. I think Chris Bell is kind of weird in the current room that
I love Chris Bell too.
Yeah, sure. I don't think he's a fit right now for the program. So I think Chris Brazzell's an awesome selection here. The only name I would bring up as just a thinking point would be the name at the top of this list right now out of the Maction, because we need a safety.
Do you, though? I mean, I know Amani Hooker was bad, but like with the other needs here and the positional value of safety, I think that he's okay enough where you can wait to solve it. And I'm not really like the level of McNeil Warren guy that everybody else is. Like, I like him, but I've got an early third on him right now. I think he's.
And I'm a big believer that McNeil Warren can work his way to a starting job within 3 years. So
I guess that I totally agree with.
The 2
but I just like you saw him go top 15 in DJ's latest mock, and
that's not happening.
I just can't get there. He's a firm, awesome mid-day 2 player to me, but I don't love him at 35. I don't love the safety this early in the class, and I'm just a Chris Brazzell guy till the end of the universe. So,
well, I guess
we're still
trying to find low moving costs. There you go. But we're still trying to find that number 1 receiver for Cam Ward, and so the more options that we can have in our arsenal for him, I think the better. So I'm
absolutely
100% behind that pick.
So moving over corner here, there's a lot of names that I really like here in the 3rd round, because I think it again, foregone conclusion that they go. To me, I've talked about this before. It's got to be edge at 4, and then some combination of corner and receiver on day 2 with the second and third picks. Here, I have Trayton Stooks is one of my favorite players in this entire class. DB out of Arizona. He only played nickel and safety for Arizona, so I have him as a nickel. But I think he could project to the boundary. There's nothing about his profile that doesn't give me confidence in him as a boundary corner. But there are 2 names that I like probably more than that here, and that is Julian Neal out of Arkansas and Devin Moore out of Florida. Julian Neal is easily one of the biggest my guys I've watched so far this year. I mean, guy's an absolute roadblock in press. Like, if you followed me for any length of time, I love Noah Williams last year. The big, aggressive, mean, physical press corners I'm always going to fall for, and that is Julian Neal to a T. I think that he matches Darrell Baker and Alontae Taylor's play styles to a T. Like, I think he fits in perfectly with that room. But then you move over to Devin Moore, and he is 6'3", 200 pounds, and I think he's going to run like a 4.33 later in Indianapolis this year. Like, he is comfortably the best athlete of this corner class that I've watched. Dalen Everett has, out of Georgia, deserves a hat in the ring there. But to me, it's firmly Devin Moore. But there is much more projection involved with Devin Moore there because Florida played literally only zone coverage. So you just never got to see Devin Moore in a one-on-one man situation, which I think is where you glean a lot of the valuable stuff from watching corner film. So I worry a little bit, you never got to see him really impress. The mirror is more of a question. The ball skills are more of a question because he just really didn't get targeted a whole lot. But everything you could see in his own corner, you saw from Devin Moore. And on top, like 6'3", 200-pound, 4.3 speed corners just don't fall this far usually. So I'm really looking at Julian Neal and Devin Moore. Is there any thoughts or specific direction you like here?
I mean, I don't think I have to tell you that if there's a large physical corner, he's high on the list for me. It's funny because we were so close in having the same names on the list, but I wanted to add Malik Muhammad to the conversation. But before we get there, I want to first bring up, what do you think the value is? Like, do you think it's more worth, just based on who's on the board? I don't even know who's on the board right now. But is it worth potentially eyeing maybe going down and getting an Everett or Will Lee next round? Is there anybody on the board that would, like, how low are you on those guys? How high are you on those guys? Or are you just so much higher on the guys available now that it's more of like a go get your guy type pick right now?
How crazy would it be if I pitched both? What if we go corner here and corner at the next spot?
See, I'm not opposed to that at all.
My latest mock draft, I had Devin Moore and Will Lee back-to-back here, and I'm really tempted to do it again. I got to be honest. Much as I love Julian Neal and his physicality, I think that just the fact that you have a 6'3", 200-pound corner who I believe to be a low 4.3 type guy, I just have like that doesn't show up in the pick 66 very often.
Devin Moore was probably one of my favorite watches of the last month. Like,
Again, there are far more questions with Devin Moore, especially I haven't even gotten to the health concerns. He had a hard time staying healthy at Florida, which is a problem.
Because of the size, probably. I'll be 100% honest. The bigger corners, like, I'm a huge fan of big, physical, long corners because I think they give you so much value just right out the gate. But I think Devin Moore is a great example of, like, that a body that size has a hard time holding up because, again, receivers can be that size because they're asked to do so much less than, like, physically than a corner. And that's why it's so hard to find big body corners, and because I want to play receiver. But yeah, I'm in on Devin Moore. I'm in on Julian Neal. I wanted to toss Malik's name into the hat, but I'm not necessarily on him more than either of the other 2 options. And then if we're going corner again, I think, I'm ready. I'm ready.
I think, I got to pull the trigger on Devin Moore here. I just can't,
because you're almost immediately getting your insurance, like, right now, if this board falls how it should, which it did.
And he said, Malik Muhammad going 5 spots before really sucks because I really wanted to add him here with our second, third round pick. But again, I think doubling up on corner is something the Titans should really entertain because you just need more bodies in this room. And the 2 guys I'm really looking at here.
This is the range. Like 60 to
late day 2
is where you do it. 60 to 90 is the range for corner in this class. Like, there's going to be a lot. That's where the run happens.
Again, I'm not opposed to double dipping at edge, or receiver here. If you think there's guys worth doing that, like I'll check edge. I don't.
Kamaro's the only name worth mentioning at this point.
I really don't love this board at all.
Yeah.
Like Caden Curry, I think has got some juice to him. I really like Huron Crawford, but not on day 2. Jason Barham, I haven't watched enough of him to finalize anything, but I don't love him there. Max Llewellyn is a late day 3 guy to me. Mikal Kamara just doesn't have the traits to be anywhere near this discussion to me.
No.
And
love the player. Like, I think he's fine. Like, as far as like a day 4 grab, a day 3 grab, like I think is a
late day 3 for sure. I like that.
Yeah.
Mid day 3 even, but I just the traits aren't there to be talked about this high. So I don't love the edge board here. If like a Malachi Lawrence was here, or I think Zion Young's gone by this point, but like,
she remembered your text from earlier about Malachi Lawrence.
Yeah, like there are a couple of guys that I'm okay with edge. Like if Romello Height is here, I'm thinking about that. But I hate that edge board right now. Looking at receiver, Ted Hurst and Brennan Thompson. These are 2 guys that I love. But I think if you draft Ted Hurst, you're just like you're getting the same receiver twice, which again I don't think is a bad thing. But I think with adding Shaheed, with what DK was, I think I'm okay running into. I'm probably going to add another guy at receiver on day 3, but I don't love the back-to-back day 2 picks being, or 2 of the 3 day 2 picks we have now after the trade being receiver. I like double dipping at corner here. And
well, again, you're making the room a strength. It went from like, at the beginning of free agency, it's man, this room's empty. I don't know. And then now we're bringing in young talent. And if we start hitting again, like this is like the hope, right? You attack a need, you don't passively add to it, you attack a need and turn it into a strength. And then over time, you're going to have guys that you're now looking at second contracts for these 2 guys and a third contract for the guy we brought on earlier. And all of a sudden you have a good problem on your hands. So I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. And I think it only allows you to, take a deep breath and say, oh, we actually fixed that. So
yeah,
I think that the question really is it Everett or is it Lee? And I hate that Rivers keeps getting tagged as a nickel, but I get it. So
yeah, again, like I was going to mention that with Rivers, where I really liked him as a player, but I just think the size makes him
big fan.
Makes him a
big fan. Nickel. He's a dog, man.
I don't want to rule out nickel. People are ruling out nickel as a need for Tennessee, like it's not on their radar of positional needs because of Marcus Harris. And I just like Harris. I don't want to take away from him because he was for a 6th-round rookie who was thrust into a starting spot within the first half of his rookie season. He played awesome for what he was, but ultimately he wasn't. He was not a plus starter at nickel, and obviously I don't know how severe the injury is yet, but there was a lower body injury that ended his season. So I don't feel great about that being your starting nickel going in, but I also just think that I'd rather add a boundary guy with how the board fell right here. And I think you're right that it's between Everett and Will Lee. I think TJ Hall out of Iowa deserves a shout here. In fact, I kind of like TJ Hall more than I like Everett. But
that's fair.
Will Lee is my favorite out of this group. And Will Lee has been a favorite of mine since the last draft cycle. I just love me some Will Lee for all the same reasons that I talked about with Julian Neal, where he's just a junkyard dog, scrappy. But this guy just hates receivers. And he wants to
I had Lee ranked inappropriately high before I took him off my board last year. Like I wasn't even comfortable putting that take out in the world. But I think my final question before we select Will Lee, as we're most likely going to, do you think Rivers could win the starting job? Does Chandler Rivers have more than a 50% shot to start week 1?
Yes.
Because
I would say comfortably, yes. I would say more like 60-40.
This pick is a free draft pick that we got off a trade. And if we can turn it into a starter, I think that is worth talking about.
But I think you got just as much of a shot at turning it into a starter with Will Lee as you do with Rivers, honestly.
I think it's 100% fair. So I just wanted to bring
it ultimately
because technically depth chart wise, I think Rivers is probably higher on the depth chart. But I think Will Lee long term is a better investment. But I just wanted to
totally agree.
Conversation first.
Totally agree. But yeah, I think we're both alluding to a Will Lee pick here, and I love the idea of the stylistic combination of Will Lee and Devin Moore, comparing those 2 skills, adding those 2 skill sets into where this corner room is. And I just love where where that room is right now. Moving on, I think here is where you really start to look at adding, maybe double dipping at edge, maybe double dipping at receiver. Both of my guys are gone at this point in Brendan Thompson and
All right,
Ted
how
Hurst.
low are you on Skylar Bell?
See, Skylar Bell is somebody that I'm ashamed to have not watched yet because he seems like somebody that I'm going to love, and I've
been
just
waiting.
been so
I've
busy
been
with
waiting
everybody
for
else
the
that I
email.
haven't gotten to Skylar Bell.
Oh,
But
you have to hit me up immediately when you turn that.
I know
on.
he has been top of my receiver watch list for a long time, and I've just gotten too busy with everything else. But he seems like a guy that I'm going to really. I hate that Kyle Lewis went 2 picks before this because I would have loved Kyle Lewis is one of my favorite players in this whole
Chandler
class.
Rivers went at 100. That would have been fun.
And again, do we triple up on and get a nickel here? Is that too crazy?
But again, I think for him, I would have gone 3 corners in a row because you're getting a starter with the first corner, you're getting a starting nickel, and you're gonna get a guy with the second corner pick that's gonna push for a job. But is it worth looking at just tackle options, seeing if anybody slid that we can kind of throw into the room, or is that
that's something that I absolutely meant to bring up because I don't think it's out of the question at all that Tennessee looks to add.
Alex Harkey, but you're a big fan, I've heard.
I am. I actually love Alex Harkey. Yeah, that guy should not get drafted. The fact that he's 143 on this board is a disgrace to football.
Man, he's a highlight tape.
That guy made David Bailey some money, dude. Let me say. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought up offensive line because I think it's very likely that you see Tennessee add somebody higher than we think in the draft. I don't think they do it before day 3, but I think early day 3 is somewhere they look to add somebody because you need competition at guard and or center, depending. I have a lot of faith in Corey Levin. I don't imagine that anybody else has the level of faith that I do. So center is another place that I think that is worth looking
Hear
at.
me out.
And I know this guy.
Go on this journey with me, would you? Would you just for a second? I feel, especially now that we've added Sayumalo, I feel, and you're gonna have more information, so I want to bring this up first. But what are the chances that Slater gets moved inside, like to center?
That is I haven't heard anything about him being the Titans moving him to center, but I had him. I think I had him graded as a center.
Yeah,
I had him graded as a center on my board in the draft last year because I think ultimately, like his movement skills and his ability to track second and third level defenders in space is dream fit for a center in his own heavy scheme, like Brian Daboll is going to run. So, really, I'm not. I think it's valuable to have a guy that can play guard and center long term like him because I think ultimately I'm gonna like the center board more than I like the guard board here at the top of day 3.
Well, so
I think that can help you make your decision.
My point off of that is, have you watched Cage Casey out of Boise yet?
I have not. He's another guy that I've meant to watch post Senior Bowl and I've just been too busy.
My thought process here is I think Slater can play guard and center. I think he can play both guards. I think he can play center. I think Cage Casey is more flexible than people are talking about because I know the size is going to be, it's fine, but I just feel like his skill set leans him more interior, but he's a kind of a great, like a prototypical swing tackle where he's just going to be good enough to spot start if he needs to. But having the mindset of, okay, we have Slater that can cover kind of our interior 3. We get a guy in Cage Casey that can be our swing tackle this year and then potentially even develop to replace Sayumalo, in the next year or 2. I think that's a better long-term plan for your offensive line. But I'm also offensive line biased, and that's 2 players I'm a big fan of. I'm also a huge fan of a lot of the interior guys available early on this board. And I think there's a huge talent drop-off right after like the 4th round for offensive line. Like if you haven't gotten an offensive lineman by the 4th round, you're kind of punting on the class at that point, which I know sounds dumb, but there's been a lot of day 3 guys and pass years that I've been a big fan of. This class just isn't it. So I think if we are going to make an O-line move, it is now. But if we don't, I don't think we have to either. I just wanted to kind of bring up that conversation.
Yeah, I'm glad you did because I think that I have not gone offensive line at this spot in any of my previous mock drafts, but I think with how free agency fell, I feel comfortable enough with all of the rooms to actually devote this pick to an offensive line. And really my question is, do we go with a guy like Casey or Bo Stevens or a DJ Campbell, or maybe an Inez Cooper?
Right here, in my opinion, I love Brockermeyer, by the way. Such
another combine snub. But I'm saying, do you go guard and have more faith in, like, if you look at both the guard and the center boards right here, do you like the idea of going guard here and kicking Slater to center, or keep Slater at guard and draft one of the centers right here?
So because I know my answer. The only three players I'm even interested in right here are Casey, Rutledge, and Jones. Like, period. And I think you're looking at Casey as like a guard tackle flex guy. That's probably going to be like a pseudo swing tackle right now. I think Logan Jones is probably the best player of those three. And I think Rutledge is probably my second favorite. So this is like why it's hard, because I struggle drafting an interior guy right here just because of how the roster looks currently. But again, I think it's just a solid move for the long term. And do you think Logan Jones is a center only type guy, or do you think he has guard potential, like where it can be we can play the better of Jones and Slater at center, and then the other one is fine at guard? Like we have these two that are going to start just about where. I mean, obviously Logan Jones would be like the center because he has the experience playing center, but that's just kind of how the camp goes.
I think it's rare for me to find a player where I don't think they can play center and guard interchangeably most of the time, because I think that there's a lot more flexibility positionally there than people give credit for most of the time. The other guy that honestly might be my favorite, I love Logan Jones. Like, he's at the top of my mind right here. Sam Hecht out of Kansas State is the other guy that you didn't bring up that I am very much thinking about right here. And that's just because I think him and Slater are so similar stylistically that you have the potential to bring in two young developmental linemen that can come in and be dream fits in his own scheme. Like, these guys both work so well in space that, and again, same thing there, where like you have two collegiate guards that have been projected to center. Just let them fight it out and see who's better where. Where I'll pull the dictatorship card and make it between Jones and Hecht, and I'll let you make that call.
I was trying to find like my receipt. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. I responded to a post. It's like, stop sleeping on Sam Hecht.
I love Sam Hecht.
This is like a problem that you put me. I was trying to not bring him up because now it's a problem. I've been on Logan Jones for 2 years, and I don't think the film got worse. So I have to lean Logan Jones if you're asking me my opinion, but I honestly think both are a great selection. But if I'm pulling the trigger, it's going to be Logan Jones.
That's tough because I think I like Hecht better a little, but it's a very close margin.
Hey, it's your team. It's your team. It's your team, sir. I'm merely.
But it's also like, I think, I'm not that I hate the word redundant when you're talking about similar stylistically, because I think having two guards / centers that move really well in space is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But I think that I kind of prefer the idea of letting Jones and Slater sort them out on the interior, because I think they have like
they're very similar.
What I'm trying to say,
they're very similar though. Like,
but I don't think they're quite as similar as Hecht and Slater are. So I think there's going to be more of a clear direction.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Like, if you draft Hecht, the center battle is solved because you're just playing Jackson Slater at center either way. Whereas I think Logan Jones has a much more specific skill set to center.
Yeah.
And I can't explain it better than that without pulling a film and watching it with whoever is questioning my words. But I just think he's a better option.
Here, I think I'm probably going to pull the trigger on Logan Jones with the idea that he's your center of the future and Slater's your guard in the future. There.
Perfect. Love it.
And I think you have a really solid foundation. And obviously you have an all-pro for the next decade in Peter Skoronski. So
I just want to note that Dalen Everett didn't go still for like 6 more picks. Crazy slide. Just wanted to bring
Alex Harkey's still on the board, just for
and he should remain there.
So looking here, we've added Ruben Maine, Chris Brazzell, 2 new starting corners, and a new center to sit behind Corey Levin. And I honestly, at this point, I wish I had cut Lloyd Cushenberry. But like he's not a part of my future plans at all if I'm the GM here.
He knows that at this point in time.
Yeah. So here at 140, obviously we don't have 142 anymore. We traded that pick to Chicago in the Tamondre Sweat trade. I think this is either edge or receiver. And I'm kind of more tempted to go receiver because I feel a lot better about the edge room post free agency. But at the same time,
any thoughts towards Big Christmas at this selection? Or are we good in the tight end room?
See, I want to add tight end, but I think that's more of a late day 3 in this class.
That's exactly what my gut's saying. It's like, oh, like that's a good, but I don't think it's relevant.
Because like there are so many names in the day 3 group of this tight end class that I love, like a lot more than most of the guys being talked about on day 2. Like Sam Roush, I love Sam Roush. Dallin Bentley, I love Dallin Bentley. Daquan Wright, I think is incredible. Lance Mason is somebody that nobody's talking about. Nate Burkitcher, I think, is awesome. Will Kaczmarek is somebody that is not being talked about a lot. I think he's awesome. So there's just so many of these tight ends that I think are real traditional inline wide tight ends with rounded skill sets that aren't being talked about at all. So I'd probably prefer to go them in probably the next pick, actually.
Sure.
But I think here I'm more looking at either maybe running back too. I know we added Kenneth Walker, but I think he's.
Don't you dare tease me with Roman Hemby. Don't you do it.
I don't think I can pull the trigger on Hemby in this range. But I was hoping for maybe like I don't really know who I was hoping to fall in this range, but I don't love the names there. So
sucks.
to me, this is between, like, I like Deshaun Stribling a lot. I think that Lewis Bond is what I was looking for here. I love Lewis Bond out of Boston College. I think he's not the most athletic guy in the world.
Come on. John Carroll, my guy.
See, I still have not found any John Carroll tape, and I feel like it's disingenuous to just draft a guy because he was good at the Senior Bowl without watching any tape on him.
We'll jump on a call here soon, and we'll watch John Carroll film together. I promise you.
If you can find it, dude, I'm there immediately. So to me, this is really between Lewis Bond and Kieran Crawford. And Logan Fano out of Utah is still on the board too. Is another guy I mentioned to you. And I know you've been around him for a long time. I like Logan Fano a lot. I think I like Crawford more. Just because I think like the level of athlete at edge that Crawford is not around this late that often. So where do you opt between receiver and edge here, just positionally?
I'm a huge
because obviously we bolster both those rooms a lot.
So I don't value receiver, so I'm like never gonna go that way, which is like the opposite of you. So we might never make this pick, but if I'm picking right here, I'm probably leaning Crawford, just because I
kind of agree.
I'm a big fan of his game, to be honest with you. I think day 3 pick, like that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna pull that trigger too because I feel the same way. I think I like Crawford more than I like Bond for where the rooms are right now. So look at that. We have
Carroll film, by the way.
Oh, well, that didn't take long at all. I'm just bad at my job too. 2 picks left here, 6th round pick, and then a late 7th round pick. I'm going tight end here, kind of regardless. I might think about safety. I like safety here, but I think that also I see a lot of my like favorite guys are gone. Like Dallin Bentley and Sam Roush have been 2 of my favorites through the process so far, and I think it's unrealistic for them to be here this late anyway.
I think John Michael at 234 is a little disingenuous. I think he's a good football player, but he's just guys coming out of Wyoming don't get hype like that. I mean, Josh Allen was fighting tooth and nail to get what he got.
And I think, like, oddly enough, like I think he got so much for a Wyoming player in the offseason that he couldn't quite meet it this year, and that hurt him a little bit.
Yeah.
To me, right here, like I just really, after adding Bellinger with what Helm is, I want a guy who's going to come in and be a dominant inline blocker. Like, I want a guy who you're drafting to be a 6th offensive lineman, and I think to me here that's between Lance Mason and Will Kaczmarek.
I was gonna suggest Lance Mason, so I think that might be if we're looking.
For nobody's talking about Lance Mason, and I really like him.
Oh, really? I've been out of the tight end conversation for a minute.
He's not. I don't think he's even on PFF Simulator right now.
I like accidentally watched him was the best part. I was watching another player from Wisconsin. I was just like, dude, who is this? Who is this guy?
Like one of the only, funnily enough, one of the only players to ever beat Caleb Downs in man coverage this year was blocking tight end Lance Mason.
Hey, Tucker Kraft's a great football player.
Exactly. I think you go into the year with Gunnar Helm, Daniel Bellinger, and Lance Mason as your tight end room, and you feel really good about that.
I feel great about that.
You can run 13 personnel out of that all day long and feel really solid about all three of those guys. So I love the Lance Mason pick there.
Which is what they need to do with the shaky offensive line room. So if we're being honest here.
And then, I forgot we have actually two more picks after that one because we have the Will Levis trade that's just totally slipped my mind. So here, we added. Is there an tackle that we like in this range? Do we
hate Emil Wagner?
Yes.
Do we hate him? Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Okay, Jalen Farmer's not going to be here this late, but Jalen Farmer's awesome.
Don't got to tell me, brother. Don't got to tell me.
That guy is sick. I'll be the first to admit I was not familiar with this game until Mobile, but that guy blew my socks off in Mobile. Like, he was awesome.
As a Cats fan, congratulations for finding him. I did a I don't even know how to word it. I'm doing like a college football version of like just roster management, and they're not really familiar with all that, like the mock offseason style stuff, right? So just like transfer portal and all that going on. And so I started up a sheet and I shared it to a couple like kind of big Kentucky, like just media guys. And I just kind of said, like, hey, this is kind of my mock board as like the transfer portal is wrapping up. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, what should I change? What have you heard? And literally all of them like blew my phone up and they said Jalen Farmer's A, because I must have had him on for reason X, Y, or Z, but they're like, Jalen Farmer's going to the NFL, but man, I wish he was coming back. Like every single one of them was like, man, that guy's an absolute monster. So huge fan. Huge fan as a Kentucky fan, but man, dude.
But yeah. I think here I would take him if he's on the board here, but I think that's unrealistic. He's going to be an early day 3 guy by the time this is all said and done.
Well, I just don't think we really have the bandwidth to make that selection at this point.
And I think here I'm looking to add just a dart throw at receiver here, and then probably a running back with the last pick. So
are we out on Barry Brown?
I still really like Barry Brown. I haven't seen him do things other than running a straight line enough to feel confident about liking Barry Brown, but I like the tools. But I just wish they had let him run more than a straight line more often. There's a lot of guys that I liked in Mobile in this area. Like Vinny Anthony, I thought was really good in Mobile. Reggie Virgil has a fifth gear in him that I didn't know was there until Mobile. He was just flying down there. Romello Brinson is somebody who was supposed to be in Mobile, but wasn't, but I really liked his tape. Really fun blocking addition to the receiver room. Caden Wedgen blew up the Shrine Bowl, obviously mainly for return reasons, but I think he's a receiver too. Lewis Bond, I've already talked about. I am wondering if he's there this late, but I think it's not totally out of the question. John Carroll's worth a shot. Devin Voisin, another guy that really impressed me in Mobile.
If you want
Amari Thomas is not on the draft, but that's a UAB legend.
My honest thoughts at this point, I feel like Tyron Montgomery gets drafted in the 7th round because he's the type of guy where teams look at 6th and 7th rounds the same as they do UDFAs. It's more just like you have 2 rounds of priority free agents before you get to the actual period.
Yep.
So I think if you want Montgomery on your team for whatever reason, you have to take him. But if you're not bought in, I'd be interested in your thoughts on Dane Key.
I have not watched Dane Key this year, but he has been somebody that's been on my radar for like 3 years because I originally discovered him watching Will Levis, and I liked him a lot.
Me too.
Back then. But hey, speaking of other Kentucky players that are severely underrated and will go before they are ranked, Kendrick Law is awesome. I think here in this range, like Cyrus Allen is another guy that's really screaming at me because he was one of the better separators in Mobile.
I'm a big fan of Brinson. I thought you mentioned his name. I might be.
I did, yeah. No, I did. I mentioned him.
Just before, because you're the receiver guy, so I want you to talk about him so I can learn about him. A and B. This is your pick, so I'll let you have it. But if I could throw a vote into the hat, that'd probably be where it went.
Yeah, I haven't watched more than just what I've seen of him peripherally from corners. I've watched a couple of corners play him. Dude, him and Avion Terrell going at each other was like two 18-wheelers just having a head-on collision.
That was such a blast to watch.
But I think here I'm probably leaning Cyrus Allen. I think because Lewis Bond I love, but I don't think he's going to be here. Just ultimately, I think Cyrus Allen may, and I think he's got some rare separation ability for this late on day 3. So I'll pull the trigger on Cyrus Allen, and then I think this last one's just going to be a running back because I want a third body in the room to feel better about. Because I don't think I think Khalil Mullings is fighting for a spot in camp this year. And I would just want to bring somebody in for competition. And the guy at the top of the list is just who screams to me immediately. Adam Randall is a 6'3", 233-pound converted receiver.
Absolutely massive. Absolutely.
This guy, 6'3", 233, and hitting 19 miles an hour in Mobile. They had him at the kick return spot. I like just the size and speed alone. I tempted to take him there at 238. Clearly, somebody else on this list had you excited, so I'm open for any recommendations here.
So Adam Randall's fun. Don't get me wrong at all. But I think Jam Miller might be one of the best running backs in this class outside of Jeremiah Love in 3 years.
Wow. I'm being an Alabama fan. I watched a lot of Jam Miller on the broadcast, but I haven't watched his tape yet. I think he gives you a lot more receiving juice than about anybody else on this list besides Caleb Black.
I just feel like he's well-rounded. I feel like people are hyping the multitude of abilities that he has, but they're kind of pushing he's a speed back, he's a scat back, he's a great third down back. I think Jam Miller's got more juice than people are giving him credit for between the tackles, brother. I'm a huge fan of Jam Miller, but if you want to go Adam Randall, I am not opposed to that at all because again, probably your returner day 1, and probably you want to talk about pin pull and wide zone. That's the guy that can do both of those quite easily.
This is tough between Randall and Miller. It's really just dart throw because I like both of them a lot. I think they both are fun dart throws in this range.
It appears that they're at 245 and 246 on the board. So
I think that's about right. I've mocked Randall here a lot of these spots before, and I haven't done Miller. So just for the sake of switching things up, let's go Jam Miller. And that will wrap up the offseason. And they like it. We like it. A- official grade. Looking at the depth chart. Quick overview because I know we've already been on here a long time. Kenneth Walker, Super Bowl MVP, your new running back to pair with Tyjae Spears, and now Jam Miller and Khalil Mullings fighting for the third spot. Chris Brazzell, Rashid Shaheed, Chimere Dike as your main 3 at receiver. You've got Bryce Oliver, Restrepo, Calvin Ridley, and potentially now Cyrus Allen fighting for the later spots there in the rotation. Tight end, you've now got Gunnar Helm, Daniel Bellinger, and Lance Mason. I think DMR is the odd guy out. I just don't think he does very much well to earn a spot in this room.
Probably a camp cut for sure.
For sure. New swing tackle in Neiman. I think Corey Levin is your center over Lola Cushenberry. New stopgap guard in Isaac Siumalu to let Slater have a little bit more time to develop. New defensive end in Ruben Bain. You've got your interior rotation of they aren't showing up here for some reason.
Switch it to 4-3. I think we'll be able to see them. Maybe. Oh no, they're just not there. Okay. Well,
we believe it or not, we re-signed Sebastian Joseph Day and we signed John Franklin Myers. So a couple of guys to pair with Jeffrey Simmons on the interior. You have Kieran Crawford, who took on day 3. Quiddy Pay, we signed in free agency. Ruben Bain again, who's not showing up for some reason here.
Yes.
Then you've got Oladejo and Jalen Harrell as developmental guys. So the edge room has been completely revamped. Go into corner, you got Devin Moore and Will Lee, both drafted in the 3rd round. So 2 brand new corners with really fun skill sets to inject into that room. Alontae Taylor as your big ticket free agent addition. Darrell Baker, you bring him back on tender. So the corner room is, I think, on the boundary you're set. I wish I could have brought in another nickel that wasn't Marcus Harris because I don't feel great going into the year with him as your starting nickel, but I think it's okay. It's not a gaping hole. And like I said, we added Jason Pinnock, who can be both safety and nickel, with some flexibility there, along with Winston. Kevin Winston played some nickel too this year.
I was gonna say I have to ask what the deal is with Winston because I was a fan of just the prospect.
Yeah, I think he's somebody you prefer at box safety, but he played both box safety and nickel. I think you could switch him and Pinnock around in those roles and things are okay there. Overall, I think for as much as you can do in year 2 of a multi-year rebuild, like I feel really, really good about how we came out of this offseason, especially overall with the free agent. Like the free agent class, I feel much better about the free agent class we did today than the one I did in my written piece a couple of weeks ago. So between the draft and all this, I mean, I really, really love how we came out on the other end.
Well, and again, like
And this is a
just
blast.
like you're coming into the season rolling over $22.5 million. So you're gonna still have a good chunk of change to work with next year. As you said, we're in year 2 of the rebuild. This is not as cool as it would be. And I feel like everybody that builds a team feels like they do a good job. But I feel like we did a great job kind of setting this team up for future success. Then obviously being able to follow that up next year with the $22.5 million that we're going to bring from this year. And then just to see how a lot of youth on this team, which is where we need to be, in my opinion. If you're going to really gear up for a full rebuild, just get as young as you can and get as athletic as you can. And I feel like that's what we accomplished over the last 2 hours and 15 minutes. So I would consider that a success 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm not sure I could have asked for much more from this perspective. I also shout out to the Stick to the Model GM tool. This is awesome. This is such a cool offseason tool to get to play around with. They have one of the better draft simulators too, I thought, at least as far as the board falling and just general quality. This is an awesome exercise. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I love the chance to get to really flesh out more of the choices, have more discussions on them. I thought we had a lot of great conversations today, and I appreciate, anybody who stuck with us through the whole 2 hours and 15 minutes of this whole process. And I appreciate you, Parker, for sticking with me. Let me rant about all of the Titans nonsense and all the conversations. It was a blast.
Hey, like I said, your team's a lot more fun to rebuild than mine because you actually might do some of these moves. So I guess I'll gear up for mine as we move forward in the process. And that's a much more depressing conversation that I will try to make fun and exciting for both of us. So, but yeah, why don't you go ahead and plug your socials and all your writing and make sure people know where they can find you, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah. You guys can always find anything and everything I do at Iron City Film on Twitter/X right there. I do my writing, my written work for Titans and draft breakdowns over at paulkowarski.com. They'll come out usually every Wednesday. It's Thursday this week because it's some new coaching stuff. I'll have a combine preview piece coming out tomorrow. But yeah, that's pretty much it. You can find my writing over at paulkowarski.com and everything else on Twitter, X at Iron City Film.
Yeah, and then again, I always plug it, but make sure you go subscribe to our Substack. It is 100% free. It is where we do our writings when we feel like doing writings that aren't required. I've definitely been slacking, but I can promise
I'll have a top 50 out on there soon. My first top 50.
I'm going to bang a lot of content out of there probably the next month. I'm not going to promise anything because life happens, but I'm planning on doing a ton of my board's going to expand greatly here in the next 4 weeks. And with that, I assume a lot of articles will be coming, at least from me. I'm not going to sign you up for anything, but it sounds like you got some fun rankings coming out soon. It is that time, folks. It is the off season. So again, make sure you go find our Substack. It is just the same as our YouTube. It is Scout the Shadows on Substack. That's where Drew and I both write. Make sure you subscribe here. Make sure you like this video, even though it was way too long. But honestly, I could talk offseason and draft and free agency and football forever. So, but yeah, like, subscribe, comment if you really care about us. Make sure you go follow Drew at Iron City Film. Make sure you go follow me at ParkerBlake60 on X. Go subscribe for free on Substack so you can keep up with all of our offseason, just honestly general content, because we'll talk everything from team building, off seasons, free agency, the draft. I will talk almost exclusively shadow teams from April to June. So if you would like that content, then that's where it will be. If you don't know what a shadow team is, please DM me so I can send you the longest messages you've ever seen in your life. But thank you again for watching. We'll let everybody get out of here. But thanks again, Drew, for kind of taking the reins on this one and making your team better today. Congrats.
There we go. Anytime. It was a pleasure.
But yeah, let's get out of here. Thanks again for everybody that watched. Like, subscribe everywhere. We'll see you next time.